on your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 7 o'clock, Baroness Casey, the crossbench peer tasked with reforming adult social care in England, has told LBC she thinks Andy Burnham can deliver improvements. The new Prime Minister's warned his plans to improve the system may mean difficult decisions need to be made regarding tax. An independent review being led by Louise Casey will report a year earlier, next summer.
I'm really keen to do it and think that the new Prime Minister has made it a massive priority. And the big thing we have to do, though, which we can't speed through, it's a kind of proper thing to get done right, is a big conversation on care with the British public. And so I said, look, I need the proper amount of time to do that.
More than half of England's now in drought. Helen Wakeham from the Environment Agency describes what's happened.
We had a lovely wet winter, but what's happened since is a very dry and hot spring and summer. Dry weather depletes the water supplies that we have, and hot weather means we use more of it. So it's a double whammy, which affects farms, it affects wildlife, and it affects our water for public use.
July is forecast to become the driest month on record, seeing just 7% of expected rainfall. A court's heard an undertaker who kept bodies instead of carrying out proper funerals spent victims' cash on lavish holidays. Robert Bush, who's 48, admitted 67 offences in Hull. Lawyers say he could face up to 25 years in jail when he's handed his sentence on Friday. When arrested, he claimed he'd always tried to help police.
I've been arrested off a plane by gunpoint. It's like I'm Che Guevara saying, I'm not that complicated, and I've said so many times, let me help you, unravel what it is, I'll come in and talk to you.
After a controversial image was shared from Zach Polanski's Instagram account, the police say it's unlikely that it would constitute a criminal offence. On Monday, they were informed about an image of a man wearing a T-shirt with a picture of a guillotine and accompanying text referring to Nigel. The Met say it was the 18th in a post of 20 images. No further action will be taken over the sharing of the picture, but they've determined that a crime should be recorded in relation to the wearing of the T-shirt. FIFA has opened disciplinary proceedings against Argentina for a banner unveiled after their World Cup semi-final win against England. The banner that read "The Falklands are Argentine" could be in breach of a rule stating demonstrations of a non-sporting nature aren't allowed. In the city, the FTSE 100's closed up 37 at 10,908. The pound buys $1.33 and €1.17. LBC weather: patchy rain in Scotland, sinking into northwestern England and North Wales. Otherwise dry, lows of 6 to 16. Sunny but fresher tomorrow. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Matt Hewitt.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening. 3 minutes past 7 is the time on LBC. Great to have your company this evening. If you'd like to make it even closer company, you could watch us on the LBC YouTube channel or Global Player or the LBC app. We're streaming the whole programme live every night. So, social care. It's the big story of the day. Andy Burnham made, I think, quite an interesting announcement this morning. People will complain that there weren't any details. But he does seem to be a Prime Minister that is taking social care incredibly seriously. And I was listening to Tom speak earlier, and he was interviewing somebody, I think, who said that he likes a Prime Minister who really believes in something, because that's the only way that something ever happens, if it comes from the top. And I don't think anybody could say that Andy Burnham doesn't take social care seriously. And he's basically said, look, I know there have been 22 attempts to reform the social care system in the past, but I really mean it. He's brought forward the Louise Casey review into social care by a year. And although, inevitably it's going to take time to introduce a new system, they've got to work out how to pay for it. I think it's really encouraging that this new Prime Minister is going to make it one of his missions. That's a Keir Starmer word, isn't it? One of his missions to really get right. He's consulted the two of the other opposition parties, the Conservative Party and the Liberal Democrats, has not asked Reform or the Greens to take part in this. Might be interesting to hear your views on that one. We'll be talking to the Conservative Shadow Health Secretary, Stuart Andrew, in just a moment and see how the meeting went today. But I really want to know what your priorities are in terms of reforming social care, and particularly how it's going to be funded, because it's clear that there will have to be extra money spent. Kemi Badenoch seems to say that she is quite happy to have cross-party talks on this, but only if the Prime Minister guarantees not to increase taxes to pay for it. Well, the money has to come from somewhere. Given that the defence budget is going to have to increase by a lot over the next few years, inevitably, I think there will have to be some innovative ways of paying for it. I read a suggestion this morning that a think tank is saying that, well, anyone over the age of 34 should have to pay extra taxes, so the burden doesn't fall on the younger generation. Well, I'm not somebody who generally is in favour of increasing taxes for anything, but I do think defence spending and social care are two things where inevitably I think there are going to be pressures to do so. But should it just be a blanket rise in income tax of 3 or 4 pence to pay for this? Or do you think it should be funded out of existing government funds? Or have you got another idea of how you think it should be paid for? Should people have to pay for it themselves? I mean, if you have a house that's worth, say, £700,000, why should the taxpayer come to your aid in terms of funding your own sort of care in old age? It's one of those questions which we've been asking for donkey's years, yet no one can give a definitive answer. Bethany Dawson is here, LBC's political correspondent. Now, you were listening to what Andy Burnham was saying earlier. How did it go down, do you think, with Labour MPs?
I think many Labour MPs felt as though they finally had a leader of their party who was being emotional about social care, who was connecting with the audience, with voters and with the issue. He spoke without notes. I think it's fair to say that he probably practiced at least the structure. It was still a very structured speech. But he spoke about this like he cares, and he also answered questions relatively directly. I mean, there are still many question marks. I mean, as you said in your intro, there wasn't a lot of detail about how this would be managed, about how changes would be funded, exactly what changes Andy Burnham is looking at. But if we look at a question he was asked, for example, on assisted dying, he directly said that he thinks a conversation about assisted dying should only happen when we have fixed issues within our palliative care services. So he was directly answering questions, and he was encouraging a lack of political point scoring. He was encouraging proper debate, and indeed brought the Casey review forward by 1 year to make it available and publishable next year rather than in 2028. The main conversation that has come from this, of course, is on funding. As you've said, Andy Burnham has called for major reforms. He's not exactly said what they'll look like, and he hasn't said how they'll be paid for. And when he took questions from reporters this morning, the Prime Minister was asked if his plans will inevitably lead to taxes needing to go up.
I think it is possible from existing budgets to do much more. I mentioned that whole thing of people coming into hospital unnecessarily from social care settings, then having a long length of stay in hospital as a result of that unnecessary admission, and then a long period where they're medically fit to leave but can't because the care is not available. Now, that very last bit has been, I think it's been estimated, that costs the NHS around £2.5 billion a year. But if you add all of it up, you are talking several £billion a year is lost from the lack of a preventative front-end social care service that's well supported. So I think we owe it to the public, before we talk about tax rises, and I know Louise will help us with this, you first have to look the public in the eye and say, are we doing everything we can do from within what we've got? And I don't think we can say that, because we've taken a different approach to funding local government than we have to the NHS. But the effect of that has been just to pile pressure on the NHS, and we haven't got the incentives right between the two. So I think, firstly, you have to do more with what you've got. But I think Louise indicated some of what we would want to do in the fullest sense will require difficult decisions. But we will be honest with people about those. We will put them before the country at the right time, and we will hopefully proceed with people's consent.
See, I find that a really impressive answer. I mean, you're speaking from the heart, you're speaking with knowledge, that's kind of what you want a Prime Minister to do, to provide some leadership. And I don't think we've had that on this issue from any other Prime Minister. I mean, Theresa May, bless her, did her best in the 2017 election when you were merely a schoolgirl, I'm sure, Bethany.
No comment.
And she lived to regret it because it wasn't thought through. I mean, she knew that there had to be some sort of change, but she just... Well, it went down like a cup of cold sick.
It's really interesting because Andy Burnham clearly spoke better than Keir Starmer has done on this issue. But Keir Starmer has links to care. You know, his brother has had special needs. His sister is a carer for people with Down syndrome. Andy Burnham himself as well has links to the care sector. He said in a really moving interview that his father currently has Alzheimer's and doesn't actually know that he is the Prime Minister now. Yeah. And he spoke about that. It is, and he spoke about that and how, you know, it means he's really familiar with the sector, but also familiar with care workers, the work that they do. And he paid tribute, I thought, really interestingly, to care workers, especially those who have come from other countries to work within our care system. And whilst that wasn't a direct comment to the Home Secretary or on immigration reforms, I spoke to the Housing Secretary, Angela Rayner, later in the day after the speech, and I asked her whether or not she thinks that there should be a carve-out for care workers within the current plans to extend the amount of time someone needs to be in the country before they can get indefinite leave to remain. She said yes. She says there should be an exemption for care workers. We think that could be a hint as to what Andy Burnham will end up doing when he introduces his own immigration reforms with Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary. But I also spoke to Angela Rayner about the social care model and about the tribute that Andy Burnham paid to carers because she herself used to work in the care sector, and here's what she had to say.
27 years ago, I started out my career as a care worker, and it wasn't the most highly paid, but it taught me a lot about humanity and people. I met judges and, you know, senior people who, when I was young, they were not people like me, and yet I was able to be their person that they needed in their hour of need. And that broke down some of those sort of barriers, those stereotypes, and it gave me honour and a value to help somebody in their hour of need. And it is an incredibly worthwhile job to do, and to deliver a care service that respects and looks after our loved ones, but also gives that status for the level of skills and the importance of the job that those care workers do. One of the first times I ever met Andy Burnham was when I was a care worker and I was a Unison rep, and he was coming to our headquarters and he was there with Michael Meacher and Tony Lloyd, and I was like, "Time to Care," our campaign, which was again ending the 15-minute care calls, which of course the Prime Minister referenced today in his speech. And look, it's about building on the fair pay agreement, around having a national conversation that says, you know, carers are highly skilled. The Prime Minister talked about the skills involved in care today. I think he spoke directly to the nation about, you know, how do we want to see our loved ones treated? You know, our aunts, our uncles, our grandmas, our granddads, our fathers, our mothers. And at the moment, the care system is fragmented. It's not delivering.
This is something that I think we're going to see more from Andy Burnham's government, which is this boosting of care as a career option. You know, we're speaking a lot as well at the moment about NEETs, about young people who are out of work, education and training. And Angela Rayner there saying that care should be boosted as an option, not just to help people receiving care, but also to help young people, to help people who are looking for employment.
Bethany, thank you very much indeed. That's Bethany Dawson, LBC's political correspondent. Stuart Andrew joins us now, Conservative Shadow Health and Social Care Secretary and MP for Daventry. Stuart, very good evening. Now, you were in this meeting with the Prime Minister today. I think Ed Davey was there, but via Zoom, I believe. What did you want to achieve in this meeting? What did Andy Burnham want to achieve? And did you both get your way?
Well, good to speak to you, Ian. Look, I mean, to be honest, it was very much an introductory meeting. We didn't go into the detail at this stage, although we touched on some of the key issues. It was really about, what his thoughts were about the future dialogue. Now, of course, this isn't the first cross-party meeting we've had. We've had two already as part of Louise Casey's review. But what he was saying is he wants those meetings to be more regular. He wants to bring the Casey review forward, as you've just reported. And he also wants to make sure that there are quarterly leader meetings, not just at my level, but above, so that actually it is leaders of the political parties as well, trying to see where we might find agreement. Now, and also I think there was a recognition with all of us that, yes, we're obviously keen to get involved in that engagement, but a recognition that, it won't be easy. There'll be lots of areas where I'm sure we can agree, but there'll be areas of challenge. And, can we work through those? And can we have that sort of dialogue starting from now, really?
It's been written up in the papers that Kemi Badenoch's red line is no tax increases to pay for social care. I mean, is that realistic?
Well, look, I think the reality is we are obviously hearing from a lot of businesses, a lot of people around the country that they are really struggling with their taxes. They're really struggling to pay. I'm speaking to businesses in my own constituency who are, literally saying they're earning less than the people they employ because they just have so many overheads at the moment. So it is right to speak up on their behalf, and borrowing more money is not an option because we're already a $250 billion more is being borrowed. But I think it goes to what the Prime Minister said in that speech. There is an awful lot of money in the system. And is it being spent properly? And I've been engaging a lot with people in the sectors, and not just, providers, but I've been speaking to healthcare professionals, to charities and so on. And they all say the same, that the people that the Prime Minister was talking about then that are in hospital but don't need to be for any medical or clinical reason, but there's no alternative for them outside. And the two systems almost working against each other and not with each other could potentially free up a significant amount of money. And that's where we're trying to push the agenda. Let's have a talk about that first to see, absolutely modernising the way that we do things. Because frankly, I know that this has been talked about for a long time, about integration of health and social care, but it really hasn't happened in the way that it needs to and the way that it should. I think we're all talking about our own personal experiences, and I've got that with my dad. I've had to bring him to live with me, and navigating both the health side of it and the social care side of it, and frustratingly knowing that the two sides are not talking to each other over his case, just highlights to me that there's a lot going wrong here.
What was the reason that in 14 years the Conservative government didn't really tackle this head on? We all remember the 2017 election and Theresa May's disastrous intervention on this. But as you say, Jeremy Hunt, when he was Health Secretary, he changed the name of the department to the Department of Health and Social Care. But nothing really changed, did it?
So look, I'm not going to pretend otherwise. You're right. It's been an issue that's been difficult. It's an issue that has eluded governments of different political persuasions. But it hasn't been for the want of trying, in fairness. I think, Prime Ministers have wanted to try and deal with this. You don't need to remind me about the 2017 election. I very nearly lost my seat at that election.
It always concentrates the mind, doesn't it?
It certainly does, yes. But look, the reality is we've got, we are all living longer, so more of us will need it. And also there are more people of working age who need social care. I used to work in children's hospices, and back then, sadly, those young people would often, the conditions meant that the end of their life was usually around 18, 20. They're now living into be 20, 30s, 40s, which is amazing. But they will need a lot of support with complex needs. And so, it is an urgent issue that we've got to try and find common ground on. And we will do our best. It's not going to be easy. And those are, Kemi's laid out some red lines, but let's talk about the rest.
We should explain that the reason you were there and not Kemi Badenoch was she had a medical appointment, and I think you were given very short notice of this meeting. So just to, I'm sure people on the text will be asking that, but that was the reason. Stuart, thank you for joining us this evening. That's Stuart Andrew, Conservative Shadow Health and Social Care Secretary and MP for Daventry. So I'm very keen to hear your views on this. Are you impressed that Andy Burnham is grasping this within the first 10 days of him being Prime Minister? I think if he can go down as the Prime Minister that successfully reformed the social care system, he would have earned his place in history. But of course, there are so many other pressures on a Prime Minister's time and efforts. And of course, the defence of the nation is one of those. And today, I'm afraid he rather disappointed me. Having impressed me on social care, he wouldn't commit to 3% defence spending by 2030, which was exactly the reason that his Chancellor resigned from Keir Starmer's cabinet as Defence Secretary. So make of that what you will. We'll come to your calls on social care. How do you think it should be funded? Do you think that Andy Burnham is riding for a fall, or are you impressed that he's really grasping this issue? It's 7:20.
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m.
Andy Burnham says he'll do whatever it takes to fix the broken care system in this country. What impact has the state of that system right now had on you and your family? And how much credit do you give our new Prime Minister for trying to fix it? Plus, is a tax cut for the elderly but not the young fair? And your calls on why so many Londoners are fleeing London.
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Hi, Nan. We're having a brilliant time. We went to a theme park and the rides were awesome. We got money off the entry tickets, so Dad even bought us all an ice cream with a flake. Probably not the best idea before going on a roller coaster. Sammy went green after. See you when we get home. Love, Leo.
Enjoy great British summer savings, such as discounted entry to theme parks, soft play and more. Funded by the UK government.
Nothing beats a Jet2 holiday. So who's ready for the best summer yet? Unwind in your choice of 4- and 5-star hotels in over 75 destinations like Kos, Lake Garda and Gran Canaria. Book now and get 22 kilograms of baggage included. Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. After National Protected. Subject to availability and conditions.
Ever notice how some things are just standard? Traffic on the M4, standard. Meetings that could have been an email, standard. But at Aon, our cars are driving the new standard. The new Aon V has rapid charging, standard. Panoramic glass roof, standard. 8 years servicing, 8 years MOT, 8 years roadside assistance, and up to 8 years warranty. Also standard, thanks to our Great 8 promise. Search Aon Auto to test drive today. T's and C's apply.
This is LBC with Iain Dale. Call 0345 6060 973.
7:22 on LBC. Let's go to your calls on social care. Anastasia is in Leeds. Good evening.
Good evening, Ian. Yeah.
Now, I was going to read out your text, but I won't bother now you phoned in.
Oh, well, you could still read it. And here she is on the telephone. I always read, I'll let you into a secret, I always read my text through because I never like spelling mistakes. So there you go. Punctuation and all the rest of it.
Well done.
Now, well done, exactly. Now, Andy Burnham, I have to say, I am a bit conservative, but, I might even renew my membership. I used to be a member of the Labour Party, but he impresses me. But what annoys me regarding social care is social care is not only for people who are elderly. It's people within their own homes, disabled people of working age. I mean, I have social care. I don't like having social care because I don't want to have the disability. Now, I started off with cerebral palsy, which you have that because you get born with it. And then what came a bit further down the line is lymphedema. And it's the lymphedema that has become more disabling. But social care needs to be taken much more seriously. It really does. And I think when it comes to any kind of disability or health condition, people only really think about that when if something happens to them. We have to think bigger. We have to think bigger than ourselves and put up taxes. That's what I say.
So you think that's the way to do it? I mean, it would be the simplest way to do it, wouldn't it? Just to sort of stick 3-4 pence. I don't know how much it would be on income tax. But on the other hand, we are now at the high. We're taxed more heavily in this country than any time since the Second World War. So at some point there has to be a limit. And given that we all know that we have to increase defence spending, is increasing taxes in that way really the way? I don't know what you made of what Stuart Andrew was saying about reforming the system of public expenditure that we've got at the moment.
I've met that MP. I think he was an MP for Pudsey. I've lived all over the place in the UK, but something needs to be done. And I can't remember his name, but there was somebody quite prestigious from the... is it Dilnot or something like
Andrew
that?
Dilnot, yeah.
Yeah, him. Well, he actually was going to do something, and a lot of people talk. But what you've done tonight is you're speaking about the subject, because that's very important. Get it out there, and people need to talk about it more, and then it follows by action.
And the thing is, social fare affects virtually everyone in our country. We all know somebody who's in a care home, or we have a relative in a care home, maybe an elderly friend of the family that's in a care home. And I take what you're saying about it's not just old people, but it's predominantly elderly people who are the main cost of social care. So I think if we can sort it out for them, the rest of it hopefully would follow. Anastasia, thank you very much indeed. Margaret is in Halifax, also in West Yorkshire. Hello, Margaret.
Hello.
Hi, what would you like to say?
First of all, background. I'm 84, and I have been listening to this on and off for the last few days. And nobody asks the old people what we think. They're always talking about us, and that sort of annoys me. What do I think? I'm not a very poor person. I'm not a very rich person. I'm a middling person. And it worries me more than anything else in my life that I might end up in a situation in which my money is wasted on keeping the shell of me alive, which I think is a pointless activity. I have heard over the last few days, the most useful thing I heard somebody say was that in Germany, they do have a care insurance for everybody. And this is what I would like. It's probably too late for me. But I think if I had paid all my life, not a lot, into a care insurance, it would just go along with the other stuff. And a very poor person wouldn't be paying it anyhow. But anybody whose income was such that they could afford it would be paying it all their lives. We all put into the pot. And so that means when we see whether we need it or not, we might need something completely different via the NHS, as we know, very expensive operations, etc. But if I had known as a younger person that I was putting in fine, everybody else was putting in fine, and if I was the person who needed it, I could just stop worrying, and I don't mind if the other person is the person who needs it. So that's what I think ought to happen. I think we ought to have some sort of everybody in. National, I want to call it an insurance, care insurance.
Yeah, but isn't national insurance supposed to do that?
Well, that's why I'm using a different word, because people keep saying that national insurance is just part of taxation. And my husband had a very, very serious facial operation, which must have cost literally thousands with a number of people, the staff who were involved. And that's the luck of the draw. That's what happened to him. And he was catered for, whereas somebody who happens to have dementia or something similar, well, they're on their own. It doesn't seem logical.
No, well, that certainly isn't logical. You're absolutely right on that. And of course, we should remember Andy Burnham's own father has dementia and is in a care home. So, I mean, I'm sure that has informed his experience of this as well. And that's why I say virtually everyone in the country will probably know someone or have some experience of the care system. Margaret, thank you very much. Let's go to Mark, who's in Cardiff. Mark, what's your view? Hi.
Hi, Ian. So I don't think that taxes should go up full stop for this, because from my perspective, I've been a 40% taxpayer for a long time. I know I'm in a fortunate position, but I pay a hell of a lot of tax. My council tax has gone up massively. I've got family members who've had dementia, and they had a lot of money that they worked their whole life for. And I think what this is likely to be is going after middle-income families again to squeeze them for more money. And I think they should be looking at things like in the NHS procurement contracts that are paying way over the odds of stuff. They should be looking at closing tax loopholes that businesses are exploiting and get the monies from them, because it seems to me that every time there's a tax grab, it seems to be for people who are trying to aspire, and I just don't see how it's fair, because I've contributed, I paid tax. I've been working since I was 17. I'm 48 now. I've got hopefully another 10, 15 years of still working. And to me, it's part of a social contract that I've contributed in. I've paid national insurance, and it's not my fault that successive governments have badly managed the economy, and now they're coming after the likes of myself for more money when there are other places they should be going for that.
OK, Mark, thank you very much indeed for your call. Right, we heard three very different contributions there from listeners. We'd like some more over the course of the next half an hour before cross question at 8. 0345 6060 973. How should reforms in social care be paid for? Do you think it is as simple as just raising income tax? Or do you think, was it Margaret there saying there should be some sort of national scheme of care insurance? Some people might say that is national insurance, but should there be something different? Some people are saying that there ought to be some sort of extra taxation if you're over the age of 34, so young people aren't burdened with the cost of the care system in their early years in their careers. Be interested in your thoughts. We're also going to find out about the drought conditions that have been declared today for more than half of England. It's 7:30 on LBC News Headlines with Matt Hewitt.
Andy Burnham's held talks with the Conservatives and Lib Dems after promising to use his political capital to bring about social care reform in England. Reform say they'd fight what they call a death tax to pay for it, and the Greens say they're deeply disappointed to be excluded from the meeting. No action will be taken against Green Party leader Zach Polansky after an image was shared from his social media of a man in a T-shirt depicting a guillotine and referring to Nigel. The Met Police say the threshold for a criminal investigation hasn't been met, but a crime should be recorded over the wearing of the T-shirt. And the Cornwall serial killer has been told he'll never be freed as the police review the deaths of 4 people he lived with at a homeless shelter. James Desborough murdered Daniel Coleman and Claudio Aquilino there, as well as his cellmate, while he was in prison. LBC weather, patchy rain in Scotland, sinking into northwestern England and North Wales this evening. Otherwise dry with lows of 6 to 16 degrees. Sunny but fresher tomorrow, highs of 15 to 29 Celsius.
LBC.
This is the life. Sipping a glass of Chardonnay without a care in the world. La vie est belle, non?
John, for the 5th time, please stop doing the voice. We're in Sussex.
Visit a vineyard by train and save a third with Group Save on off-peak journeys. Southern Railway, where every stop is a story. Terms apply.
Hello, beautiful people! Get ready to rock with a new Volkswagen T-Roc. Until the 3rd of August, get an extra £1,200 off the T-Roc, plus 0% APR when bought on finance. Test drive the T-Roc today and see why it won What Car's Best Small SUV Award.
18 plus from stock only. Registered by 30th of September with Solutions PCP. Max 24-month term. Indemnities may be required. Volkswagen Finance.
At the third stroke, the time from BT will be at 6 o'clock precisely.
Today in the UK, BT will protect millions of homes against scammers.
Threat neutralized.
Keep thousands of family video chats running smoothly.
Hi, Nana.
And answer every call for support from the UK and Ireland.
Okay, all sorted.
Switch to broadband you can rely on, with advanced security included as standard.
At the third stroke, the time from BT will be brilliant.
BT, behind brilliant things.
Iain Dale on LBC. Text 84850.
7:33 on LBC. Well, drought has been declared across more than half of England as hot, dry weather takes its toll on the country's water supplies. The Environment Agency has announced announcement covers much of central, eastern and southern England and is a public sign that further restrictions on water use might follow. It reminds me of the summer of 76. Do you remember when Dennis Howell, the Labour minister, was made the Minister for Drought? I wonder whether that's going to happen again. Well, let's talk to Dr. Heather Smith, Senior Lecturer in Water Governance at Cranfield University. Water governance, Heather, that's an interesting phrase. I mean, in a sense, the government itself has very little control over this, doesn't it?
Well, they certainly don't have any control over the fact that it hasn't rained. That's true. This is the effects of, essentially, it's the effects of climate change that we're seeing. And we're likely to see more prolonged dry periods like this. They're likely to become more frequent as we see more effects.
So the fact that half of England has been covered by a drought warning, that presumably means that the reservoirs are at a very, very low level.
It's a sign that there are risks to water supplies, yes. And the definition of drought is, there's no kind of standard definition, but it's where the Environment Agency sees risks to water supplies, but also risks to the environment from the prolonged dry periods that includes things like fire risk as well. They said that southern England in particular has seen only 1%, I think, of the rainfall that it would normally expect to see at this time of year.
And that's affecting farmers particularly as they seek to harvest their crops, because of course a lot of the crops are being killed off because of the sun, and the yields that farmers will get are much lower because obviously the dryness of the corn means that you have to it just won't weigh as much as it would have done in a normal year.
Yeah, that's right. It creates challenges, a wide range of challenges. Farmers can be particularly badly hit, and they have to, the authorities have to make some fairly tough decisions around who gets allocated the water. Do we put more towards public supply or more towards the farming community? So these sorts of tensions become greater when we get these dry periods.
Now, we haven't built new reservoirs for many, many, many years. Are you? You slightly hinted in your earlier answer that we are heading for a position where individuals may not be able to get water out of their taps. Now, in a developed country, that is almost unthinkable.
It would be quite shocking if that was to happen. Yeah, we're facing a potential shortfall of something like 5 billion litres per day, but in a few decades, if we don't change anything. But the good news is there are plans to change things. So you mentioned reservoirs, and there are plans in place for something like 9 new reservoirs across the country, along with other supply options like water recycling and desalination and transfers. So we ideally we'd need to see some of the delivery of those schemes accelerated.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Heather. That's Dr. Heather Smith, Senior Lecturer in Water Governance. Shall I start that again? Senior Lecturer in Water Governance at Cranfield University. Always good to get your diction right, isn't it? 7:37, let's go back to your calls on social care. We'll talk to Nzinga, who is in Merton. Nzinga, very good evening.
And good evening to you too. Now, I have a few points to make. One is that, there is far too much dependency developing in this country. And this idea that somebody owes us something and should pay for our care, I don't agree with that. I'm from Jamaica. I came here when I was 7. I'm 75 now. And I've seen the growth of this dependency syndrome where the government is responsible for everything and we don't want to take responsibility for what needs to happen to us. We need to save. We need to put money aside so that if we do need services, we can contribute. Obviously, those who can't, then that needs to be provided. Where I am now, I have many friends, and they are taking care of parents, especially mothers, and some are taking care of fathers. They have a rota in the family for brothers, sisters, cousins to come in and give support to the family. And they're not looking to the government to do anything. I have friends whose families have gone back to the Caribbean. They send money every month. Obviously, the money is, what's the word I'm looking for? You get more for your pound, say in Jamaica, where I'm from. So a smaller amount can be sent to employ carers to look after your relatives. And I think we need to get back to, obviously, if people haven't got the resources, then the state needs to step in. But we need to be brought back to providing for ourselves. I had a Saturday job in Sloane Square, in Woolworths, and then in Peter Jones when I was 15. I've been a nurse, a health visitor, and I have provided for my early, well, if I get sick, I expect my children to, chip in and help look after me.
Well, you see, that's a very interesting point, because I think if we were going back, say, 50 years, that would have been the norm in this country.
Absolutely.
Because like my grandmother lived with us until she died. But I don't think that happens so much nowadays, where people move away from where they grew up. Often the parents or grandparents live 50, 100, 200 miles away, and you haven't got that bespoke family unit. But for some people with different cultural backgrounds, I would say the British Asian community is a good example of this.
Where we're doing it in the Jamaican community.
Yeah, well, you've just proved that as well. But I think that is that tradition of looking after your older family members within the family unit or within the family home is much more prevalent in some cultural backgrounds than I would say traditional white British, whatever you want to call it.
But maybe we need to encourage people and train people to go back to providing for themselves as opposed to expecting the state.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear you all talking about how much in debt we are. And, you all owe us reparations. So that's another thing that's going to go on.
Don't go there, Nzinga.
On Saturday, we're having the Emancipation Rebellion March from Windrush Square in Brixton to Parliament on the reparations topic. So, it's great talking to you. You have a great evening.
And you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, that took a turn, didn't it? I love it when that happens. Right, let's move on to James, who is in Huddersfield. Hello, James. Another one from West Yorkshire. Social care is big in West Yorkshire.
West Yorkshire is all over this kind of stuff. Margaret earlier, if she wants to come out for tea, she'd be very welcome. She sounds lovely. I'm only the other end of the Ellen bypass. And didn't catch that previous lady's name. She was also great. If she wants to come out for tea, amazing. Now, reason I have called in is because...
Oh, and the line's gone dead. What a shame. Let's see if we can try and get James back, because I wanted to hear what he had to say. Misha is in Swiss Cottage in London. Hello, Misha.
Good evening. Ian, what do the following people have in common? Gary Lineker, Ricky Gervais, Bono, Hugh Grant, the former Prince Andrew, Christine Scott Thomas.
Well, until you got to the last two, I'd say they're virtue signalling lefties, but I don't know the answer to your question.
The answer to the question is this year they all turn 66 and therefore pensionable. But I only found out recently that you don't get your pension automatically. You have to apply. You have to apply to the government for them to give you your pension. And my thought was there should be a talking head campaign for people like names mentioned, that if you don't need it, don't take it. Now, 10% of pensioners, if they declined their pension, would generate £300 million by doing absolutely nothing. And they say that 10% of pensioners at least are millionaires. That's 300 million for each year, at least. Could be 20% of pensioners, who knows? Because everyone goes on, does Branson take a pension? Does Alan Sugar take a pension? Does Paul McCartney take a pension? The answer, of course, is don't know. But the only way they would is if they or their accountant had contacted the government, working pensions, and said, please, can Mick Jagger or whoever receive their pension?
Are you right on that? I'm not sure you are.
Absolutely, because I'm 66, and I didn't do it. And I suddenly thought,
You see, I thought, and because a friend of mine, and I remember this quite vividly, turned 67 during COVID, and she got a letter.
No, they changed the rules.
Well, she got a letter saying that, well, your pension will start in however many months' time.
No. Literally, I'm 66, and they did send me a letter, which I lost. So I rang them up, and I actually got through to a human being. And she said, give me your national insurance number, which I did. And she said, we owe you £6,000.
Marvellous.
Because you didn't collect your pension on your due date. And it's turned up.
What did you spend it on?
Do you want to know? I actually divided it by 2 and I sent it to the kids of a friend of mine.
Well, that's very generous.
I know. And I said, buy something nice or go on a holiday and have a good time. But the thing is, you can imagine Ricky Gervais, Gary Lineker, Bono, Hugh Grant, they'll be at each other's throats because they will be asked. I bet you someone in the middle of an interview about Gaza, probably, someone will say to Gary Lineker, do you take a pension? He'll say, none of your business, which he's entitled to. But at least one of those, Hugh Grant or Bono or Ricky Gervais, will stand up and say, I'm entitled to my pension, but I'm not going to take it. Well, that would be a great slogan. I'm not going to take it.
Well, if I ever get to interview Gary Lineker, which let's face it is unlikely,
I could tell you.
Maybe I'll have a word with James O'Brien because he's always interviewing him. I'll suggest that he asks him that and see where we go.
The fact is, they have to do nothing.
Yeah.
0. Just don't take it.
Well, the thing is, the Daily Mail, and let's put it through the prism, it was the Daily Mail that reported this, that they were saying that Gary Lineker's accountants were always on at the HMRC to minimise the amount of money that he pays in tax, which is interesting given that he's somebody who says that he really wants to pay more tax.
Well, there you go. But you should inquire, and because I think a lot of people listening will expect when they're 66, they get a letter through the post saying, here's some money. It won't happen. If you don't ask for it, you won't.
Yeah, but you just said it did happen and you lost it.
No, because I rang them up and they said, we should have heard from you 6 months ago. And they sent me back 6 months back pension.
Yeah,
to bring me up to
but
date.
the point is, you did have the original letter, but you lost it. And then you got in touch with them.
But if you go on their website, it says you may have received a letter, which obviously means that some people didn't.
Well, if you don't get it, then obviously you do need to contact them. We're dancing on the head of a pin. Misha, thank you very much indeed. You're a very generous man. Right, let me tell you who's on cross question at 8. David Mundell, who's Conservative MP for Dumfriesshire, Clydesdale and Tweedale, former Cabinet Minister. Rachel Blake, Labour MP for the cities of London and Westminster. Hannah Martin, Co-Executive Director of the climate-focused Green New Deal Rising campaign. And Henry Riley. Who's he? No, never heard of him. 7:46.
This is LBC.
Claire's in Carlisle.
Scott has called from Glasgow. Hi, Scott.
Jane's in Camden first. Hi, Jane.
Not all places have felt that they're part of the national story, and that is what this government is going to work every single day to change.
Hear every side of the story.
He needs to get directly to the core issues that people are feeling on a day-to-day basis, because a lot of people don't feel hope.
I would rather there be something in Manchester than have to always be completely and utterly disregarded by London.
I deplore this kind of walk into the number 10 without the mandate. Really, we should have a general election.
The regional representation that Burnham's got in his cabinet, because there's nobody from the southwest represented in that. How do we get heard?
Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app. LBC, leading Britain's conversation.
A message from TfL for drivers and motorcyclists. Before you turn, look around. Is there a cyclist in your path or approaching behind you? You now need to always let them pass before you turn. Follow the highway code to keep everyone safe. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Ever notice how some things are just standard? Traffic on the M4, standard. Meetings that could have been an email, standard. But at Aon, our cars are driving the new standard. The new Aon V has rapid charging, standard. Panoramic glass roof, standard. 8 years servicing, 8 years MOT, 8 years roadside assistance, and up to 8 years warranty. Also standard, thanks to our Great 8 promise. Search Aon Auto to test drive today. T's and C's apply.
Honestly, I've been putting MTD off. First it was, I'll do it after this job. Then, after some grouting. After sorting the back of the van. After fish fingers and peas. And then I thought, no, just get it done.
Get MTD done simply with Sage, for free. Just connect to your bank, we'll sort your transactions, then submit your update to HMRC. Search Sage MTD.
Get unlimited video calls with vets from First Vet with Pets in a Pickle. For pet insurance policies as unique as they are, visit petsinapickle.co.uk.
Payday! You know what that means, don't you, Tim?
Yes, I do. Create a spreadsheet for bills, savings, groceries.
Or we can literally do anything else, because Monzo sorts your salary for you.
Anything, you say?
Anything.
Great. Let's create a spreadsheet and catalogue our socks by colour, thickness, elasticity, fibre content, length, wooliness...
OK, I'll order pizza.
Monzo. Get busy living. Monzo current account required. UK resident 16 plus. T's and C's apply.
This is LBC. Message Iain Dale on WhatsApp now on 0345 60 60 973.
It's 7:49 on LBC. Some people don't really get my humour, do they? And this is one of them. Let me put my glasses on to read this. This is from, actually, is it Daniel? Who says, Henry Riley is one of your LBC producers. Actually, he's a presenter. Bet you've never heard of him. He was actually my producer for an all too brief 6 months, and then Nick Ferrari poached him from me. This is like going back to 2019, and look where he is now, presenting his own shows. Who'd have thought? Actually, I would, because he's very, very impressive. Right. I bring good news to the country. James in Huddersfield is back on the line and is about to tell us why he's phoned in.
Well, hello. And just reiterate the offer to Margaret if she wants to.
Okay. Get on with it, James.
Social care can be cost neutral. I had a meeting with one of the largest metropolitan councils in the country with their adaptation department. So the department that will do, if you are less abled, you can make changes to your home, make it easier for you to stay in it. They gave me a envelope calculation that if for every £250,000 that they spend on minor adaptations, so grab rails, ramps up to your stairs, stair lifts, that kind of thing, they would save the local NHS about £1 million.
Wow.
Cost neutral. The thing is, we're different departments across government, across local councils, they are so siloed. These cost savings are there. We don't think about them, we don't talk about them. So we could do it if we stopped thinking about the NHS and social care as two different things. Now, Jeremy Hunt went somewhere towards it. The NHS in Wales did move towards doing this, and Theresa May accused them of cutting the NHS. But if you divert some NHS funding to social care, to helping people stay in their own homes without being injured by their morbidities, their disabilities, their lack of ability, it saves us all money.
You see,
we could do it without raising tax. We could do it without cutting services. We can do it.
And I
don't think about it that way.
It is partly, I think, down to people who work in social care in the NHS having the courage to come forward and say, right, we work in this system. We can see what can be done. We can see the reforms that need to be made. We know how to save money. Let us do it. But I suspect there are. Well, hang on. Let me finish. I think there are probably a lot of people who might want to do that are discouraged from doing that because they've done it in the past and nothing changes, because it's so much easier to keep doing things in the same way rather than innovate.
So, sorry, who do they come forward to? Because your local council budget, and we saw it during the austerity years, 2010 to 2020. We saw that basically statutory obligations were piled onto local authorities. They have to do these things. They are a legal requirement. They don't have an option, but they don't really have any extra funding. Because they can't do it, because Mrs. Miggins, apologies to any Mrs. Miggins who's listening.
I've never met a Mrs. Miggins.
Because she cannot be discharged from hospital to her home, she is costing you, me, the taxpayer. She's costing us tens of thousands of pounds because she can't go home. Mrs. Miggins wants to go home. And she could, but local authority cannot afford to make the changes to her home or to fund the place in a care home that she could go to.
James, we'll leave it there because I want to get through to another couple of people before the end of the hour. But thank you very much indeed. And can anyone text on 84850, who was Mrs. Miggins? I don't know. Scott is in Ramsgate. Hello, Scott.
Hello, Ian. Hello. Just going on from your previous caller, but just there's 2 or 3 points here. Historically, about 40 years ago, when I was a young child, there was nursing homes. And then that changed probably due to funding. They couldn't cost or whatever. So they changed then to residential homes. Because if you still have nursing homes, but then that is funded by the NHS if you're there. If it's residential, then that's where they then charge you. But also going back to what your previous caller just said about adaptions in your home and that and the other, that's devolved down to local district or borough councils, not even local government like county councils. So that's a totally separate budget. But also, the social care budget, and Andy Burnham spoke, he made one sentence today about it, isn't just about adults, it's also about children. Anybody that is vulnerable from the moment they're born to even if they're adults with learning difficulties, and they're looked after by the shared care budget. But ultimately, at the bottom end of this budget in the social care, you've got hedge funds running children's homes, children's services, charging £10,000 minimum. I personal experience of this, £10,000 minimum for children's services for children. So then, by the time it gets through to adults, there is no money left. But ultimately, the social, although Mr. Hunt put them both together, the social care budget is actually managed at a local government level, like Kent County Council, Essex County Council, not at a national level. So you have to bring that budget into a national audience, or the ability for central government to make that decision, because they're two very different things.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's go to Paul, who's in Nuneaton. Hello, Paul.
Oh, good evening, Ian. How are you?
Good, thank you. What would you like to tell me?
My wife is a living carer, has been for many, many years. My one gripe is the amount of money that she earns as opposed to the amount of money that the care agencies take off the client. One in particular, my wife is earning $800, but the client is paying $1,500 to the agency. It seems a bit of a rip-off, if that's the right word, for doing. It doesn't seem to be doing a lot for the client, where my wife is doing a lot. She's there 24/7. She gets 2 hours off a day.
2 hours?
She gets 2 hours off out of 24.
Wow.
She should work a 12-hour day. That's what she should normally work. And out of that 12-hour day, she'll get 2 hours off. If she gets called out at night because she's living, the buzzer will go, she'll have to go and talk to, care for a client, whoever that is, whether it's female, male, or a couple. So that's what some carers earning £750 up to £1,000 a week. But the agencies are taking £1,500, £2,000, £2,500 a week easy from the clients. That's where I think a lot of the money is going.
And that proportion is totally out of proportion, isn't it?
It is. It is. not to put too fine a point on it, she is let's say she's a foreign carer. She's come over here and lived here for 14 years. She's from Zimbabwe and very experienced. That's the kind of money she earns. But the agencies, doesn't make a difference which agency she works for. She's a self-employed carer, so it doesn't make any difference who she works for. That's the sort of markup that the agencies are making.
And of course, and they will, if the NHS or whoever, or the local authority that's paying for it says, well, we're not going to pay that, they'll say, OK, then find somebody else. And that's why these prices are so extortionate. Paul, thank you very much. Now, thanks to the many listeners and viewers who've got in touch to tell us that Mrs. Miggins was the pie shop owner in the third series of Blackadder, which now you say that, I do remember it. But I think she was a character in Victorian fiction as well. That's what ChatGPT tells me anyway. Right, on Cross Question. Coming up, we have David Mundell, the Conservative MP for Dumfriesshire, Clydesdale and Tweedale. Rachel Blake, Labour MP for the cities of London and Westminster. Hannah Martin, Co-Executive Director of the climate-focused Green New Deal Rising campaign. And LBC presenter Henry Riley, who's with you every Sunday afternoon from 3. They're here to answer your questions on 0345 6060 973.
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, the Tories and the Lib Dems say constructive talks have been held with Andy Burnham on reforming social care in England. The Prime Minister has brought forward the Casey review into social care, promised improved pay and training for staff, but hasn't ruled out tax rises to pay for it. He says past governments' failures to act are a dereliction of duty. Stuart Andrew, Conservative Shadow Health and Social Care Secretary, was at the meeting and told LBC it was positive.
It was really about, what his thoughts were about the future dialogue. This isn't the first cross-party meeting we've had, but what he was saying is he wants those meetings to be more regular. And he also wants to make sure that there are quarterly leader meetings, not just at my level, but above, so that actually it is leaders of the political parties as well, trying to see where we might find agreement.
Police say no further action will be taken over the sharing of a social media post by Green Party leader Zach Polanski. Nigel Farage reported him and spoke before the update.
Polanski, who is in a position of serious responsibility, cannot put out on his social media the image that he did, my name, the guillotine, without some consequences. We all get things wrong in life. We all make mistakes in life. And what we do afterwards is we apologise.
Well, a Reform spokesperson has since called the decision evidence of what they call two-tier Britain. More than half of England is now officially in drought after high temperatures and very low rainfall. A wildfire in the Cairngorms has now been burning for a fortnight. Lynn Go is the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, from the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service.
It's hard to even put into words what we're actually looking at in terms of the whole scorched landscape. We're seeing whole mountains that look like just the black, tinder black.
The 7-year-old boy's died in hospital a week after getting into difficulty in water at a beach in Essex. His 15-year-old cousin and her mother from East London died at West Mersey last Wednesday. And the president of FIFA is offering £30 million to member football associations if they back his controversial plan to sell off stakes in its major competitions. England's FA says it's deeply concerned. In the city, the FTSE 100 closed up 37 points at 10,908. The pound buys $1.33 and €1.17. LBC weather: patchy rain in Scotland and sinking into northwestern England and North Wales this evening. Otherwise, staying mainly dry, lows of 6 to 16 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Daryl Jackson.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. Cross Question with Iain Dale.
It's 2 minutes past 8 on LBC. I'm Iain Dale. Welcome to Wednesday's Cross Question. On the panel with me, sitting to my right, Rachel Blake, who's Labour MP for the cities of London and Westminster. To her right, David Mundell, former Conservative Cabinet Minister, MP for what sounds like the most idyllic constituency of Dumfriesshire, Clydesdale and Tweedale. I'm sure he'll agree with that.
I do.
Yeah, I thought you would. It's not really in your interest not to, is it? Hannah Martin is making her debut on the programme. She's co-executive director of the climate-focused Green New Deal Rising campaign. And next to her, my LBC colleague Henry Riley, who presents the Sunday afternoon show from 3 p.m. every Sunday here on LBC. So we are after your questions to our panel, 0345 6060 973. You can WhatsApp on that number, you can text 84850, and you can watch us on Global Player, the LBC app and the LBC YouTube channel.
0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Cross Question. Watch live on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Right, let's start with a question from Tanya in Loughton. Is this country prepared to accept that fixing social care is going to be really expensive? Now, we've been covering this in the last hour, and one or two of our callers said, well, it doesn't need to be expensive. And they came up with various suggestions as to how the current system could be changed and money could be saved. Rachel, let's start with you. What did you make of what Andy Burnham said today? And he did hint that there may need to be tax rises to pay for social care in the future. Tanya says, is it inevitable that it's going to be expensive?
I watched the speech back this afternoon and I was really struck by the scale of the ambition on the topic, but also the real honesty that came through his personal experiences. And let's face it, we all have personal experiences in this space. And his grasp of the detail, the scale of the challenge as well, like acknowledging that social care is something that lots of different people with different types of needs are using at the moment. And I suppose just to really address the question, it is expensive at the moment and people are paying for it in all sorts of different ways, and we need to acknowledge that and have an honest conversation about the points at which people are paying, the way in which they are paying as well. I would entirely agree that there are lots of things that we can do at the moment to address the scale of the cost. If you think about the far too many people are spending far too long in hospital, far too many people are entering the care system through A&E at the moment, and far too many people are not getting the services that they need at a point to make sure that they can stay in their home in a safe way for as long as they possibly can. So it's a huge topic, and I think that was reflected in the fact, or just the way in which the Prime Minister was describing it, but also the fact that we had Angela Rayner, Secretary of State for Local Government, which is really struggling with the cost of it at the moment. We had the Secretary of State for Health, who will know the impact that social care is having both at the front door and within the wards in hospitals. That's where there's an awful lot of cost, you could say. It's also care for people, and they will really understand that we need to think about where we want to be spending that money, and I want it to be spent in exactly the right care for people in either their homes or homes that are more suitable for them as well. And I think that where we are spending money at the moment is not always in the right places, particularly if it's in A&E and in people spending too long in hospital.
Okay, David Mundell.
Well, I think the first thing that we have to acknowledge is that in the period around COVID, everybody said how important social care was, how much we valued people who worked in social care. And then somehow we managed to forget that in the period immediately after. We didn't go in and reinforce the system. There was an attempt in Scotland, where social care has devolved, to create a national system of social care, but that didn't succeed. It was an overly sort of bureaucratic attempt to try and have a sort of centralised system. So I think it's very important to address all the issues. Rachel's touched on them because the multi-level of issues. And for example, in my constituency, the biggest single issue is that people cannot get a care package to be at home. There are not the people to provide that. There are not people, particularly in rural areas, who can provide people to have the support that they need at home. So it is a multi-layered issue. We'll need to see what Baroness Casey says, but I think the core is it has to be an honest conversation, and it has to be honest about what's going to be provided and where the money is going to come from.
Now, Henry Riley, you're on a winner when you get fan mail before you've even uttered a word. Kieran says, Henry rocks. You're okay, Mr. Dale. Kindest, Kieran.
Well, thanks very much to my dad for that. No, it's not my dad. I think Dave's got a very fair point about where this is all going to go and how it's going to be paid for. I mean, the idea, I think what we can't do is hammer young people in order to pay for the cost of social care. Speaking
as a young person
in their 20s. But people in their 20s and 30s are already spending a vast amount of money on pensions, for example. There's already this idea of intergenerational unfairness, which is really affecting young people. It's front of mind for young people who are feeling that they are barely getting by, and yet we hear, I appreciate that our pension system isn't particularly generous if you compare with other European countries, but certainly in terms of how it's calculated in the UK, when people's wages are pretty stagnant, the idea of a triple lock, I think, for a lot of young people, they're pretty envious.
So you're joining the Swarbrick, Dale, Kentish triple lock axis to abolish it.
Well, yes, absolutely, abolish the triple lock.
Right, so you've got a quadruple lock then.
But I don't, no. But I don't think it's a silver bullet, by the way. The triple lock would save money, but it wouldn't save as much money as people think.
Well, it would save 15 billion.
Yeah, well, that's what the IFS say, I think, isn't it? But on the point about social care, it is doable, clearly. The system at the moment doesn't work, and also it clearly doesn't work for the people working in social care who are vastly underpaid compared with the NHS. The lower band of it, they're paid £23,000 a year. It's £25,000 in the NHS. They're often badly treated, and 40% of domiciliary care workers are on 0-hour contracts. So until we have parity between social care and NHS, we're clearly not taking it seriously.
Well, and they don't. A lot of them don't get paid if they're operating in a rural area. They don't get paid for the time it takes to go from one appointment to the other, and also. And I think this is still the case in many areas, they can't even claim their petrol back. I mean, it's outrageous.
No, totally agree.
Hannah?
I think that I agree with most of what's been said. I would say the only thing that maybe there is to add is that some of what's going on, I think Louise Casey said it this morning actually on the radio. She talked about how she didn't like profiteering. She didn't like people profiting off other people's misery. And that had to be an important value as they address issues of social care. I think. And
we had a caller in the last hour saying that his wife, I think he said she's literally caring for somebody 24 hours a day, and she's getting paid £1,000 a week, and the agency is getting paid £2,500 a week.
Exactly. There was a report out last year that suggested they looked at 3 regions, and they suggested that of the money that the local authority was paying into the care providers in those regions, the private companies, around £294 million was being leaked out of the system. It wasn't being invested back into those services to improve them, to make them high quality, to pay workers more. It was going off to, directors' salaries that are 50 times higher than the lowest paid worker in their business, or to shareholder profits, or in some cases to offshore tax havens. So actually, I think we do also have a problem here of looking at, how do we make sure that the money that we do invest in the system stays in the system and improves the system.
But isn't that a slightly dangerous road to go down? Because there are many care homes that are owned and managed by individual people. They're not sort of private equity companies. We can't surely get to a position where we're saying public good, private bad.
No, I think what this report looked at was the private equity companies that see this as a kind of investment opportunity almost, because it's a steady income from local authorities. I don't think we're talking about, individual business owners. That are part of that problem that I described. But I do think that thinking about what the vision is for Andy Burnham's solution to the social care crisis, I think that he shouldn't scrimp on on potentially being quite bold and saying that a national care service that is potentially publicly owned could be the solution. That is a bit preemptive of the report that will be announced.
Which was Jeremy Corbyn's policy in the 2019 general
I think that there's a lot of
election,
sense in the idea that this is a public good. I think there was a poll out today that 70% of people think that it should be paid for through general taxation. So people understand it as in the same way they understand the NHS, in the same way they understand public services, our education system. And they understand that in order for it to be extremely high quality, free at the point of use, and not necessarily governed by private interests that are seeking to make profit off it, that might well be the best outcome for people that need it and their families.
I mean, some of it already is paid for. This is getting into the heart of the complexity about cost. Some of it is already paid for by national taxation through the grant that local authorities are receiving. Some of it is then paid for through council tax as well. Some of it's paid for via the NHS again. That will be through national taxation. So it's an incredibly complicated picture, and that's what we need to be having this national conversation.
Let's take a follow-up question on this from Glenn in Worcester. Should Andy Burnham be excluding Nigel Farage and Zach Polanski from his cross-party talks? David?
Well, Andy Burnham is hosting the talks, and ultimately it is for him to determine.
Sorry, David. Yes or no?
Who he invites along. I think he's invited the mainstream parties along, and
Reform are leading in the polls, aren't they?
Yes, but they're not. They don't have that degree of representation within Parliament
yet.
Well.
But, I mean, it's possible that Nigel Farage could be Prime Minister after the next election. Surely it's in the current government's interest to get all the parties to buy into this, particularly, you don't want Nigel Farage going into the next election, I would have thought, if I was Andy Burnham, saying that he's going to rip this apart if he comes up with a solution.
Well, I think I would be more interested to hear what he was actually going to do about it, and I haven't heard anything, coherent or costed coming from him to present in that or any other forum.
Okay, Henry?
Yeah, of course he should be invited. I mean, this is Andy Burnham has basically hedged his bets from the campaign in Makerfield that he's the one to win over Reform voters, and then one of the first things he does is a big slap in the face of them. I agree, Nigel Farage has not got any sort of social care plan as far as I can see, or Reform UK, and so the idea that would preclude them, I think you can expose that if you invite them, much like the Green Party as well. If you're going to make an argument that Nigel Farage is not in Parliament, then you can invite someone from the Reform Party, much as if Zach Polanski isn't going, I think it's Ellie Chowns, who's the Green Party spokesperson on health, that should be there. So I think considering Reform, as far as I can tell, have been at the previous 2 cross-party talks on social care that were held in private, I don't quite understand why they weren't invited to this. The whole thing really is performative, if we're being honest. I mean, I doubt, given what the Conservatives said about no extra tax, there's really going to be a way forward on this, but I think it was a mistake not to invite them.
Hannah?
I mean, I think that your final point is maybe where I want to come in, which is if they're, the Labour Party have been elected on a massive mandate for change. I think it's admirable that he's bringing people around the table, and there's probably always more space for that in politics generally. However, in order to enact the vision for change and to potentially change people's lives in the way that he really wants to, he already has a mandate in the form of a massive majority in Parliament, and I'm not necessarily
sure... Andy Burnham's mandate, is it?
I'm not necessarily... The Labour mandate, and he's saying that he's, keeping to the manifesto.
On 33% of the vote.
But I think that, if you want to talk about democratic reform, we could go there, but I think that...
I'd love to do that.
Many of our listeners might.
Yeah. But I think
social care is not going to be in the manifesto, was it? I mean, he's going to have to change course.
I mean, I think that there's definitely a case for him charting his own pathway and not necessarily needing to bring every single party along with him on every single particular part. It might be that cross-party consensus is necessary just to even articulate the scale of the problem and be like, we can all agree that this is a giant problem. How we solve it, how we pay for it, exactly what we do.
Rachel.
Maybe they don't need it.
Yes, it's right that they're excluded. To your point about the polls, we don't make up who we go to based on polls and who may or may not win the next general election.
What's the point of inviting Ed David?
They would consider, because he's got representation in Parliament.
So is Nigel Farage. Not as much. But...
not as much, precisely. And then, but if you look to what the heart of the announcements were today, is about having an honest and reasonable and grown-up conversation about the complexity, about the needs around social care, and yes, about the cost, how we pay for it, who's paying for it, through what means. And immediate stance that was taken by Reform was to characterise this approach to mischaracterise it entirely. I think if they particularly wanted to come forward with a meaningful response, they've got every chance to do that. They've got Parliament.
By having them in the room, surely you expose that.
I think it's been exposed either way, hasn't it? It's been exposed either way.
But he now looks like a martyr in a sense because he hasn't been invited.
I would disagree. I thought the way that Robert Jenrick looked like he didn't remotely understand the seriousness of the issue whatsoever, or some of the misery.
Well, given that he was the Secretary of State for Local Government, you would hope that he might.
You would hope that he might, but I don't for a second think that he...
Briefly, yeah.
Don't for a second think...
But isn't there also a danger in this? Because the attack from the hard right is on the so-called Uniparty, that they accuse the Conservatives and Labour of just being the same, the Uniparty. Well, they can now say, well, see, I told you so, they're excluding us, and that they will play the martyr card.
I take the argument, but I think that we've been clear that these are cross-party talks. I expect that the main opposition, the Tories, and then the Lib Dems probably will bring different perspectives to those cross-party talks, and they will have different principles. But if Reform wanted to come forward with some sensible ideas, they've got every opportunity.
Right, we're going to talk about the fact that it's a bit hot, as you can see from my shirt today. It's 18 minutes past 8.
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m.
Andy Burnham says he'll do whatever it takes to fix the broken care system in this country. What impact has the state of that system right now had on you and your family? And how much credit do you give our new Prime Minister for trying to fix it? Plus, is a tax cut for the elderly but not the young fair? And your calls on why so many Londoners are fleeing London.
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Us kids are mesmerised by the mundane, entranced by the everyday. Where grown-ups see a snail, we see a slippery shelled beast from the undergrowth. But around 1 in 5 young children have a sight condition that can get in the way of all that wonder. The good news is, if these are found early, they can be managed or corrected. So book your child a free eye test at Specsavers today. Find out more at specsavers.co.uk/kidstests.
Take summer by storm with Kia. Introducing the new Kia Sportage Storm, a unique limited edition of the UK's favourite family SUV. Test drive the award-winning Kia Sportage today and order yours by the 31st of August to get 5.9% APR representative and up to £3,000 PCP finance deposit contribution. Search Kia Take Summer by Storm. Kia. Movement that inspires. T's and C's apply. Kia Finance. To verify, visit kia.com/UK/favourite.
Look, there's a snail, and its eyes are sticking out of its antlers. It looks like an ice cream.
Ella sees a lot more than just a snail. With free kids' glasses from Specsavers, plus a second pair from £10, they'll see a world of wonders. And you'll see a great deal too. So book them an appointment at Specsavers today for free. £10 second pair with free glasses from our £65 and above range.
Conditions apply. See online for details.
Cross Question with Iain Dale. Watch live on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
21 minutes past 8. Let me reintroduce my panel. David Mundell is Conservative MP for Dumfriesshire, Clydesdale and Tweeddale, who is a former Cabinet Minister, former Secretary of State for Scotland. So what are the main towns, apart from Dumfries, in your constituency?
They are Annan, Lockerbie, Gretna Green, the wedding capital of Europe.
Is that still sort of?
It is. It's still a big thing. I had a debate in Parliament about relaxing the rules around marriage, and the government are having a consultation on it, but Gretna Green's still a place that you can elope to if you're considering that, Ian.
I had no personal interest in this. Happily married. Rachel Blake is Labour MP for the cities of London and Westminster, and all too briefly a government minister. You were sort of the Liz Truss of Labour.
No, that's a bit below the belt, Ian. I very happily stepped up to be Economic Secretary to the Treasury for a couple of months.
It's a bit cruel to sort of... What's Auntie Burnham got against you?
I don't think so. So my predecessor, Lucy Rigby, returned to her post, and I think she did a great job.
I'm only teasing.
I enjoyed cover, and she's back now.
And Hannah Martin, Co-Executive Director of the climate-focused Green New Deal Rising campaign. 30-second elevator pitch.
About Green New Deal Rising, we can tackle climate change and have a better life.
Ooh. 8 seconds. Well done. Henry Riley, LBC presenter, Sunday afternoons from 3 o'clock.
Yeah. Elevator pitch?
And, well,
no, I don't think we need to do that.
Good.
Right, Rico in Kingsbury. We are in a drought here, and it hasn't rained for ages, while France and Spain are literally on fire. What will it take for those downplaying climate change to get with reality? Now, the Environment Agency has declared today that there are drought conditions across more than half of England, while a drought was also declared for parts of Wales last week. Well, Hannah, this is your area, far away.
This is my moment.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose...
A little bit Martine McCutcheon-y.
Please don't. I will start singing. I mean, I think that this is a very good question. It's one I ask myself daily. I feel, though, that I haven't been able to have a conversation with most people over the last few weeks that doesn't include something about the heat waves, the drought, the wildfires. 300,000 people have been evacuated due to wildfires. I think that we are, unfortunately, in... it's no longer the exception, it's the rule, I think the Prime Minister of Spain said. And unfortunately, we are going to need to think both about how we deal with the new reality, but also continue to accelerate our ambition around tackling the climate crisis. It is also important to say that every bit of carbon that we keep in the ground matters. We do not have an inevitable pathway to ever escalating climate impacts, droughts, fires, floods. We know what the solutions are. We have them available to us. We know what the problem is. There's scientific consensus on all of that. And so what it requires is some changes to the way we live and the way we run our society. But some of those changes, as I said in my elevator pitch, could make life better. If you look at insulation, for example, home insulation, which we need to do as part of the climate change plans that we already have, that will keep our homes warmer in winter. We have some of the leakiest homes in Europe, but also our homes cooler now when we need it. If you look at public transport investment, that could connect us as a society, make it easier to go to hospital, see friends, see family, make us not so reliant on individual vehicle use, which was also good for emissions. If you look at renewables, great for bringing down emissions, but also energy security. We don't have to rely on, nations that are volatile.
But we do sometimes talk as if we're really not very good in this country at this sort of thing. And yet you look at the statistics and we're better than any other country in Europe at reducing carbon emissions other than Sweden.
We have been certainly a world leader. I would hold ourselves to the standard that we have set for ourselves, which is the Climate Change Committee standards. And we are so far actually not on track. But what they've said is we have the capacity to be on track. And we are on track in certain areas, so like energy supply and generation. But if you look at heating and transport, and then if you look at aviation and industry, we're not on track. So there are bits that we've been doing, well, and bits that we could improve. I will also say that I don't know how we can stand up on the world stage. Ed Miliband has an ambition to be a global leader on climate as part of his Foreign Office brief. I think that's encouraging. I think he did a great job at DESNES. I'm sure Miata will carry on that work. But I think that, we cannot stand on the world stage and say, this has to be done now. We all have to work together. This is a global problem, and not pull our own weight and not do our bit.
Well, maybe you should have that conversation with the big countries that really do pollute.
I think that is the intention of Ed making that a priority. I would say I would like to see Andy Burnham say more on this issue.
All right, Henry?
Well, I agree to some extent with you, Ian, and also Hannah. The idea that the UK is somehow this sort of retrograde country that does nothing to pull its weight in terms of climate change clearly isn't true. In terms of other people recognising, perhaps who are sceptical of the importance of it, the facts are there. I was reading today we've had 3% of our usual rainfall in July. Obviously, we know that the hot summers are meaning that the soil is, not that I'm a climate expert, but the soil is particularly prone to fire or to spreading, sorry. I was reading Tim Stanley in The Telegraph, really brilliant article. Really interesting piece today. Yeah. And one of the things he talks about it not being started with a Zippo lighter, but the hot summers depriving the soil of moisture, and made the point, which I thought was really interesting. France used to have 15 fires on average a year, and in 2026 has already had over 300. If you want more evidence, just read Tim Stanley's article in it.
But I think what he said is interesting, which is that he was essentially, it was a bit of a clarion call, to be honest, to the Conservative Party to not, throw out with the trash the work that they had done to build consensus on the climate crisis.
I think it was more a message to the more right-wing people,
sure,
like reform, rather than necessarily the
Well, I don't know.
Party.
I'm not sure that I would say Kemi Badenoch's been a particular leader on the climate crisis, as an issue in her time as leader so far.
Okay, defend your leader, David.
Well, I don't think the Conservatives have abandoned what they did, and I think we in government we did have a good record. I think the key thing that we have been saying is that we should not punish ourselves.
But she is blocking candidates from standing if they refuse to sign up to this policy of not signing up to net zero by 2050.
Well, she's saying that people who stand for the Conservatives clearly have to stand on the basis of the manifesto that we'll go into the election. Are you happy to sign up to that? Well, I'm happy to stand on the basis that we have a proud record in tackling climate change. We have a specific view that we don't want to take measures that are detrimental to this country in order to reach particular targets, and that's what we've been very clear on. So, we're not signing up for foreign gas and oil to be brought into the UK at a much greater, with much greater impact on the climate than, for example, producing it here in the UK.
But those are targets that you set yourselves.
Well, we've got a question on that coming up, so let's hold our fire on that one. Rachel.
Three things. Firstly, consensus and leadership really matters. I think Ed Miliband being in the Foreign Office is excellent on this front in terms of building an international coalition. I absolutely agree on restoring that political consensus in the UK about the topic. I've heard quite a bit from the Tories whilst I've been in the chamber that is criticising an approach towards anti-net zero, and I think we do need to really focus on building back that political
consensus. It's not anti-net zero, is it? It's anti-net zero by 2050.
It sounds like anti-net zero to me. And given that there's so much opportunity in jobs and skills and investment, I think that it's not reasonable to take. I have three things, but I only got to one, so I'll come back.
Bring it in.
Okay.
It's just I want to fit in this question before we go to the news. So brief answers on this. Excuse me. Would more oil drilling in the North Sea be responsible given the effects of climate change we're all witnessing?
We've set targets around and objectives around drilling in the North Sea. It is going to be part of the energy mix for some time to come. I think it's responsible within the limits that we've set.
Okay, David?
Yes, we should be drilling in the North Sea rather than bringing in oil and gas from elsewhere.
Which sounds perfectly sensible, doesn't it, Hannah?
No. I mean, in a short answer to that question, no. I mean, partially because most of the oil and gas from the North Sea will be sold on international markets. So unless you're suggesting that we put in place regulation to sell it only in the UK or nationalise the rigs, I'm afraid that's what's going to happen. Also, it's a dying basin. 93% of that basin has already been extracted. It's a dying basin. They are asking for us to remove those taxes in oil companies in order for them to drill for more oil because it's so costly to drill for oil in those places because it's a dying basin. So, it's not the economic boon that people think it is, and it will bust through our climate targets. I mean, the chief of the International Energy Agency says we shouldn't be drilling in the North Sea at all.
But how is it sensible to import it from the other side of the world? Because there are climate consequences from that.
The thing is, taking more oil and gas, new oil and gas out of the ground, I know this is really crude, but not to make a pun about oil, but this is really crude. But, that we cannot afford to do that and stay within safe limits of climate change. It's fairly basic science.
Answered my question.
We'll burn it. But listen.
But how is it sensible to use ships to transport oil and gas from all over the world when we could take it out of the North Sea?
Take the two new fields that are in conversation at the moment. Rosebank will reduce our reliance on imports by 2%, Jackdaw by 1%, because the majority of that gas and oil will be sold on the international markets. We do not have the refineries in this country to process it and deliver it here. And why would we make a bet on building new refineries to do that on a dying basin and a dying industry? What we should be doing is doubling down on the transition for those workers and those communities, making sure that there are jobs in offshore wind, in other industries, supporting them to transition.
David, do you want to rebut that?
Well, I don't agree with that analysis, and I don't think people who live in the northeast of Scotland who work in the industry agree with that either, as they demonstrated when that was put to the electoral test in the Aberdeen South by-election. They haven't seen this transition happening. They've seen a loss of their livelihoods, and they do see huge super tankers bringing in gas and oil from elsewhere to the United Kingdom when we could still be producing, even with a reducing base, and we could still be producing more ourselves.
Henry?
In short, Hannah, you're not going to like this. I think that we should basically make use of it. I think if you look at I think it's 78% profits levy on the energy companies. We're going to need 13 to 15 billion barrels of oil by our target net zero date of 2050.
So would you nationalise those rigs? To ensure that oil stays in our country.
Well, I'm talking more about the tax revenue as well. If we're charging,
but they are saying they don't want to pay the windfall tax in order to leverage that oil.
Companies, they won't pay it?
They're saying they won't drill for Rosebank and Jackdaw with a windfall tax in place. They're like, get rid of it.
Well, it's up to them. If they don't want to do it, well, they won't do it.
Yeah, quite.
Well, then they won't do it because it's too expensive to do it. So I really think that we are not thinking through the economic practicalities of these companies and how much it costs to invest in that dying basin.
But also,
it's not going to bring our bills down. It's going to be exported on the international markets. It's going to be exported on the international market.
But it could bring the bills down if the tax revenues were used to do that. I mean, it's a choice of government what it does with that money. I've got no idea how much it would raise, but even if it was only a few hundred million, that's a few hundred million more than they had before.
I mean, windfall taxes also, we should remember, are not predictable and are not guaranteed necessarily. So, and also,
but
actually,
you're in favour of them.
No, yeah, I know, but there've been some estimates that suggest that we could actually end up spending more money on Rosebank over the lifetime of that project because we would be online for the decommissioning costs of that project.
OK, on that bombshell, let's go to get the news headlines on LBC. It's 8:34. Here's Darryl Jackson.
The Tories and the Lib Dems say constructive talks have been held with Andy Burnham on reforming social care in England. The Prime Minister's brought forward a review, promised improved pay and training for staff, but hasn't ruled out tax rises to pay for it. The Met Police says they won't take further action against Green Party leader Zach Polanski over a social media post he shared and then deleted a photo appearing to reference Nigel Farage. Reform UK's called it two-tier Britain. And more than half of England is officially in drought, with weeks of continuous dry weather taking its toll on water supplies. More than 20 million people are already under hosepipe bans. LBC weather: patchy rain in Scotland and sinking into northwestern England and North Wales this evening. Otherwise mainly dry, lows of 6 to 16 degrees.
The LBC app. News your way. This is LBC.
Get ready to rock with a new Volkswagen T-Roc. Until the 3rd of August, get an extra £1,200 off the T-Roc, plus 0% APR when bought on finance. Test drive the T-Roc today and see why it won What Car's Best Small SUV award.
18 plus from stock only. Registered by 30th of September with Solutions PCP. Max 24-month term. Indemnities may be required. Volkswagen Finance.
Bring your pensions together with Pension Bee and take control of your retirement. Because when your pension is in a good place, you're in a good place. When investing, your capital is at risk.
When you're smiling. Banning Dental Group Clinics. With over 5,000 top-rated Google reviews. Keep on smiling.
Last night, I was watching an episode of Amadeus, where Mozart
exploded, launched another Real Housewife during Shiv Roy's wedding night, where she asks Tom for an open
sandwich, Chicago beef filling, cooked by a chef in a
pastel Regency gown. Oh, quite steamy.
Get Sky, Hey You, HBO Max, Disney Plus and Netflix together in one simple subscription. Go to sky.com.
Requires Sky Stream and Sky Ultimate TV subscription. Minimum broadband speed of 30 megabits per second recommended. 18 plus.
Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC. Text 84850.
8:37 on LBC. Former Conservative Cabinet Minister David Mundell with us, Rachel Blake, Labour MP for the cities of London and Westminster, Hannah Martin, Co-Executive Director of the organisation that has a very long title and needs to be reduced to one word, Green New Deal Rising Campaign. And
for the tip. I'll take it back.
And Henry Riley, the LBC presenter on Sunday afternoons from 3. Right, a WhatsApp question from Simon. Is the Met Police's decision not to take any further action over Zach Polanski's sharing of a picture alleged by Reform to incite violence against Nigel Farage a triumph for common sense or, as it suggests, an example of two-tier policing? What does Reform's stance on this say about its suitability to form a government? Henry?
I think it's right that the police are not looking into this anymore, really. I think Zach Polanski clearly has a lot of learning to do. He's politically a bit of a moron, clearly. I mean, he just is endlessly on social media, endlessly making mistakes. You remember in the wake of a terror attack in London questioning the police tactics after there was an attack on the Jewish community. It's not the first time he's got in trouble. He needs to put his phone down, grow up. But equally, Reform UK don't really have a leg to stand on. You look at some of the comments Ia Yusuf has made, calling people traitors, saying there'll be a reckoning one day. Reform councillors talking about a volley of gunshots heading towards migrants coming to the UK. Clearly we all need to do better, and Zach Polanski is no different.
Well, would you like to apologise for your use of the word moron there?
What, Zach Polanski? No, absolutely. Well, I think that's insightful.
It's apparently a word that mine does for us not to use.
Oh, really? Well, in which case I'll not take it back.
Hannah?
I mean, I agree. I think that it's right that they're not looking further into it. I would have said sorry if I'd have made that mistake. I think that he did say it was a mistake. He took it down incredibly quickly. I think that, we do have to hold ourselves to high standards, anybody that's in public life. And I think he's taken responsibility for that and says he's going to try and do better. And in some ways, that's all we can ask from one another. But I do think he probably should have said sorry.
Yeah.
Rachel?
I shouldn't get involved in operational police decisions. Sorry, that sounds a bit earnest, but I think it is important for politicians to say that because I'm a representative. I agree with this one. I think that he took the post down quickly. He should have apologised. He's got a decision to make. Does he want to be the leader of a political party, or does he want to be a commentator constantly making mistakes and errors, and really quite serious errors on social media? We are all, as representatives, people in public life who go out and ask people to vote for us, take part in the social contract, we all have a responsibility to conduct ourselves in a thoughtful, respectful way. He didn't. He needs to find a way to articulate his concerns, his vision in a way that isn't offensive.
David?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with what Rachel's said. I mean, Zach Polanski seems to make an awful lot of mistakes. And when you're leading a party, or certainly when you've done that for a period of time, people would expect you to make less mistakes than you might make on day one, and that doesn't seem to have been the case. I think a lot of things are to get attention, but sometimes it's the wrong kind of attention, as this incident has shown. I'm not terribly in favour of the police using their limited resources to get involved in this sort of thing, and part of his apology, I think, should be for actually the police having to get involved in any sense and waste their valuable time on dealing with matters like this.
I've got some breaking news here which might involve needing tissues for Hannah. Great timing given our recent debate. Donald Trump has just told reporters in the White House that Andy Burnham has told him that he'll open up the North Sea. Your immediate reaction, Hannah?
Well, I mean, what happens in that White House is anybody's guess. I mean, I think that until we see proper policy announcements on this, I wouldn't want to trust Trump with that level of thing. But I do think that, we are in a heat wave. Not to labour the point, I do think it would be a terrible time to announce an expansion of fossil fuels.
Okay.
Truly, I think that he could lose the burn and bounce over it. And what's the point in that?
Can you do a Trump impression, Henry?
No, and I'm not even going to try to.
We ought to get Corey in here, because Corey, it's like listening to Donald Trump, and because Andy Burnham, great Prime Minister. Right. Rhonda in Hackney says, why is the population of London falling? Why are people choosing to move away from our capital city? New data from the Office for National Statistics has shown that London was the only region in England which saw its population fall last year by 0.3%. As well as in the London-wide population falling, it also fell in 23 out of the 33 London boroughs. That is interesting.
Warning,
now,
Iain, this is one of my specialist topics. You are going to have to
fire away, because you are the MP for the I suspect the richest constituency in the country.
It's one of the most equal. It's got some of the most wealthy wards and some of the most deprived wards.
So what's your explanation for this?
Right, here we go. So there are 4 factors on this. The cost of housing, Brexit, I believe, is a significant factor. We have core demographic factors. People are having fewer children, and welfare reform is a big part of it. For a long time has been a part of it in terms of the way in which housing benefit was paid, particularly under the previous coalition government from 2010 onwards. I know this particularly acutely because of the situation in primary schools in my constituency. It's a situation that's happening across the country. It's most acute in the very
also the school rolls are falling.
School rolls are falling. So I'm going to take the opportunity to talk about Soho Primary School, which is really concerned about its future and the future of primary school in Soho. And I really want to make sure that we can keep a primary school there, because it's absolutely at the heart of communities. Once we see more of these demographic factors playing out, we will see more and more primary schools.
I mean, that is interesting, because London, I think I'm right in saying, the non-white population in London is now 40%, or the immigrant population in London is 40%. And if you look at the demographics, immigrant families tend to have more children than I always get lost on the terminology here, say indigenous people. So you wouldn't expect that necessarily to happen. Or is that happening in other boroughs, but not particularly yours?
So I'm seeing this information live, like you. The overall, the demographics are showing that in terms of all babies, we are seeing a lower birth rate at the moment, and that's having.
Because who can afford it?
Who can afford to live?
Did you say Brexit was a reason why people were leaving London?
People were moving out, and people were moving out. Well, workers were moving out to other parts of Europe, so people were leaving.
But the thing's about people leaving London. Was this not about people leaving London to go elsewhere in the UK?
Oh, is that?
Is it, or is it?
I think it is. But even if it wasn't, there's still net. I think I'm right in saying there's still net migration from the EU to the UK. So that doesn't quite match, does it?
I think that it's had a real factor of people moving out to other European capital cities, but it's playing out in a number of different areas. Housing, the continuing challenge of building enough affordable homes, or there being enough affordable homes to rent, is a core part of it. And also, are we building the right kind of homes? Are the homes that we're
Remind me who's been mayor for the last 10 years?
Sadiq Khan's been mayor for the last 10 years against extremely challenging conditions in terms of getting anything built.
Okay.
Another favourite topic of mine, but you'll want to move on.
I mean, I think that this works on many levels. I mean, I just don't. I think it is fair to say that housing is by far and away one of the biggest reasons why people can't be in London. I mean, I have a conversation almost every day with someone who's like, "Shall we leave? Is it time?"
But isn't that the same in all capital cities nowadays, particularly in Europe?
Well, again, I don't know if this is compared to other countries. I don't know if you're seeing the same thing happening in Paris, in New York, in other places. But, I can speak to my experience to say, I have a small child. It is very difficult to live in London at the moment. And let alone if you're talking about people who are, on much lower incomes. I mean, I don't know how anybody does it.
Have you thought about moving out?
Yes, of course, because it's very difficult to know, and this kind of speaks to Henry's point about intergenerational unfairness, honestly. I think that there is a degree to which the experience of millennials and Gen Z in terms of, pay, job security, being able to afford to rent, let alone buy your own, starter flat and then a family home, is just really, really difficult. And I have felt at times that the political establishment hasn't quite caught up to that. And it's possibly to do with an age gap. There being, most people who are in the political establishment were able to buy their own home, if they were earning a decent amount of money, were able to then, buy a family home, were able to live where they, broadly speaking, chose. But actually, that is not the case for a lot of people now. And you've got, a vast number of those people are voting now, and they expect to be listened to, they expect to be heard, they expect for some of these things to change. But it is.
So I think that's changing. I mean, your intake of 2024 MPs, Rachel. I mean, I would say that overwhelming majority of you are in your sort of 30s, early 40s.
I was going to make exactly.
Well, there you are. I saved
defend my cohort in terms of.
But we've got to see the policies then,
which we are seeing. 1.5 million new homes. Significant renovation of
they're not even making
they don't exist right now.
Look, we absolutely need to.
Is it still even a target under Andy Burnham?
It's still.
We don't know, do we?
But you're 2 years in. How many homes have you built?
I'm going to have to write back to you on that. I'm not going to make it up. I'm not silly enough to make it up.
But even looking at rent, why is it not on the table to consider measures that have been introduced in other countries like rent freezes?
Because they haven't worked.
Because they
have worked in a certain place in Berlin. They've worked.
No, they haven't.
Not in Berlin.
And we have
Berlin housing costs are akin to London's.
And we have the Renters' Rights Act, which brought in a different approach to how rent rises could take place, and we need to see how that works. And I think the impact of the Renters' Rights Act in terms of ending Section 21 and updating how you can determine a rent increase should have an effect on
I'm
that.
going to allow David to plead the fifth on this, given he's not a London MP. I know you obviously spend a lot of time in London, but given the time, would you like to forego your opportunity to answer
I will,
this question?
because London is not my specialist subject.
Good. It's 8:48.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
The determination by the Prime Minister to fix social care. Andy Burnham has promised problem-solving, not point-scoring. Would you be in support of that plan?
The problem isn't social care. The problem is the fact that we all live, on average, 20 years beyond retirement age now. Look at the good work that a lot of care workers and a lot of care providers deliver. Yes, he's looking at a funding model, how to fund it, but yet he must take on board the good work that a majority of care providers do.
I just concern that we sort of introduce these costs. They get forgotten about. 10 years later, we're not accountable to how effective it's been.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Pick up more sun cream. Impromptu picnic. Late night cinema trip. Do more this summer. Hop on and off with the Weekend Hopper. Get unlimited weekend bus and tram journeys for £1.75 per day every Saturday and Sunday from the 25th of July. Plan your journey with the TfL Go app. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters. Offer valid from 4:30am on the 25th of July until 23:59 Monday the 31st of August. Always use the same card or device when touching in. For more information, search TfL Hopper.
Tackles the crunch and theatrical diving. Rivals on terraces sobbing and crying. Last minute winners that change everything. These are a few of our favourite things. When you're singing, yet not winning. When your bet's gone bad. We simply remember our favourite things, and then we'll feel so glad.
For all your favourite things, visit BetVictor. 18 plus gambleaware.org. Please gamble responsibly.
When you're smiling, the whole world smiles with you.
Life feels better with a smile. Banning Dental Group Clinics. Modern, comfortable and affordable dentistry for all. See online for our price match promise. Keep on smiling.
Keep on smiling, keep on smiling, and the whole world smiles with you.
banningdental.co.uk.
Can you hear that?
No.
Exactly. Silence.
Right. Where are the kids?
Bowling, basket weaving. The point is, they've got their first Monzo account. So they can do their thing, we get spending updates, and I get 5 minutes of... Oh.
Says here they bought a kayak.
At least they won't need picking up.
Monzo. Get busy living. For ages 6 to 15 UK residents. Parent or guardian account needed. T's and C's apply.
Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC.
8:51 on LBC. Hannah says she'd love to do a voiceover for an advert, having listened to our wonderful adverts. I tried that once and was told I could only do ones for funeral directors.
No, But you've got a voice for radio, clearly.
Well, apparently. Anyway, Henry's got a better voice than I have for radio, I think. But David Mundell is here, Rachel Blake, Hannah Martin and Henry Riley. Right, Juliet says, sorry, let me put my glasses on. Is Chris Philps' filming of migrants being allowed to board a dinghy on a northern French beach proof that no government will ever succeed in getting control of our borders, whatever they try? Now, the Shadow Home Secretary was filming from south of Calais this morning, a day after a French Navy ship appeared to fire warning shots near to a fishing boat which he was on board. That could have been a bigger story, couldn't it? Rachel?
I've not seen Chris Philps filming, but based on what the question says, no. I think that this Labour government is making a great deal of progress in terms of the arrangements with France, particularly around these boats and the crossings, making progress on bringing down the asylum backlog. And I think that's really important in terms of stopping people getting onto boats.
But a thousand have come to this country since Andy Burnham became Prime Minister, and that's only 10 days ago.
Yeah, and that's we don't want that to be happening because it's incredibly dangerous coming to this country on a small boat, and we want there to be a fair and reasonable asylum process where people can be assessed quickly. So, but to answer the question, no, I don't think it is proof. I think that we're making progress on it.
David?
Well, I think it's evidence that it's still happening, and I think the difficulty that we're seeing is that it isn't actually now smaller boats. These boats are getting larger and larger with more and more people on. And what Chris was trying to do was just to highlight that this is, despite everything that's being said, this is still happening. Other MPs have been out. The Home Affairs Select Committee went out and saw it. It's still happening on the ground. And despite all their protestations to the contrary, the French authorities are not taking proactive steps to do something about people getting on board the boats. And I find that incomprehensible. I have a coastal constituency. If that number of people got on a boat, they would be in breach of health and safety, in breach of all sorts of other regulations, and the authorities would step in and try and stop it. So I've been at a loss for a long time as to why the French authorities cannot bring themselves to intervene.
Hannah?
I mean, I think what Chris Philps was trying to do was sort of copy Nigel Farage. Wasn't there videos of him standing on the Dover beaches pointing at the sea?
Well, he was the first one to actually identify the problem.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but I think that there is
I remember he was on LBC at the time, and I was when he came on the programme and talked about it, I was genuinely shocked about what he'd found.
I think that, as Rachel said, we need to think about ways to protect people and protect their right to claim asylum, and also protect them from dangerous journeys. Part of why they are getting on those boats is because there are lots of cases where there are no safe and legal routes from certain countries. I'm not an expert on
but they're in a safe country, France.
But I would say that, I come from a family where my granddad came to this country after World War II from Poland. He was an asylum seeker. I'm very grateful to this country for having a kind of progressive and open approach to people fleeing war. And I think that should be a proud tradition that we uphold. And I'm glad to see that Andy Burnham said he would look at our approach to asylum. I think he said that quite recently.
Okay. Henry?
I'm a bit torn on it, because I think sort of going out to see the issue for yourself like Chris Philp did I get it, rather than pontificating from Westminster. He says pontificating from Westminster, I suppose, but it's much better to go out and see the issue. And I think you've seen how Robert Jenrick did a very good video about fare dodging, didn't he, where he sort of got right in the heart of it, went to Stratford Station. And whether you like him or not, it really highlighted an issue and it got everyone talking about it. So I think there is merit in it. I don't like the way that Chris Philp was sort of kind of revelling in it, and I think ultimately, whether you think it is a problem, I think it's
revelling being shot at.
No, this is today. So yesterday he was shot at. Today he was sort of running alongside some of these asylum seekers. I don't love the idea. I mean, ultimately they are numbers in terms of how he sees them, but they're also human beings. I think sort of running alongside them, I don't particularly love. Okay. And also this sort of fake Peter Hanrahan act is not really suited to Chris Philp, because he's not as good as Nigel Farage.
Taj in Handsworth in that's in Birmingham, says, should the British Football Associations and the rest of Europe's FAs boycott the World Cup if Gianni Infantino's plan to sell off bits of the World Cup goes ahead? The president of FIFA is proposing selling the commercial interests of football's global tournaments for deals worth up to £15 billion, prompting anger from Andy Burnham and a threat from the European football governing body UEFA that all the European nations could boycott future World Cups. Anyone that isn't interested in football has a free pass on this, but I know, Henry, you have.
Well, Gianni Infantino is a complete weapon. I mean, the guy is a complete moron, and he is ruining...
That word again, Henry.
But he is genuinely ruining FIFA. He's ruining the World Cup. We already saw, I'm not going to get too into the weeds of it, but we saw Florian Balogun, the US striker, who had his red card rescinded because Donald Trump called him up. I mean, this is absurd. This is a football tournament. It happened to be a very good football tournament. You saw teams like Cape Verde doing particularly well, Curacao. There was a lot to celebrate in the World Cup, but it's overshadowed by a man who's got an ego that almost matches Donald Trump. There he is front and centre. He knows nothing about football. There's a video of him taking a corner. This is the guy's head of FIFA. I mean, it's like he's never seen a football in his life. He's totally hopeless and they should sack him.
Hannah.
I mean, I think that football, I will confess to being the type of person that watches every 4 years, but avidly every 4 years. But sometimes two, yeah. It depends what's going on. But I think that I feel that football, the people that I know in my life that love football, they love it because it's part of who we are. It brings people together. I think with ticket prices rising, a family can't take their kids out to watch the football at the moment. It's too expensive. And that's partially because of this commercialisation and drive for profit.
You should come to the London Stadium and watch West Ham. It's very cheap.
Pretty empty.
Well, it is now. No, 50,000 season tickets
really
sold. Rachel.
Football belongs to the fans and to communities. I'm not a detailed fan, but I know how much people really love it, and I think we need to do everything we can to protect the World Cup.
David, any Scottish football
I
teams in your constituency that are in the league?
Annan Athletic are in the second division of the Scottish Championship, and just on the periphery are Queen of the South, the only team to be mentioned in the Bible.
Well, that brings an end to... well, no, it doesn't, because we've still got a fun question. This is from Cara in Leeds. The BBC is axing TV shows including Blankety Blank, Celebrity Mastermind, that's terrible. I've always wanted to go on that. Not that I'm a celebrity. And Live at the Apollo in order to save money. But which old TV classic deserves a revival?
I think James O'Brien won Celebrity Mastermind, didn't he? He likes telling me. I think so. He goes on about it.
A little bit of me just died. Okay, you start.
God. I would revive The Thick of It, because I think we've had too many administrations where it hasn't happened. Get Armando Iannucci to dust off the typewriter, and some of the Liz Truss, Boris Johnson, even Keir Starmer premierships, I think would be fantastic to watch.
Hannah?
I'm torn between the Poddington Peas, which I used to love as a child, and I would love my daughter to watch. It's about peas, and it's got a great theme tune.
It's very green, isn't it?
It's very green, very on brand.
So I'm feeling really sorry for your daughter now.
No, it's a really good, a really good programme. But I also think I Kissed a Girl should not be cancelled, because it really does a good job of educating people about queer relationships, and that's on the BBC now.
Strangely, I've only seen I Kissed a Boy.
For the sake of Haddington's daughter, don't bring back the Piddington Peas or whatever they're called.
Rachel.
Brilliant.
I would bring back The Good Life, because I thought it was
You couldn't, not unless the original actors were in it and most of them are dead.
I don't know. I think we should give it a go. I love the concept. I think there's lots of interesting kind of unspoken things about the programme. It's kind of ahead of its time in terms of their approach to the environment and how they were sort of living side by side.
You know, when Penelope Keith died, what was it, a few months ago?
Yeah.
I had to explain to those people behind the glass in there, all of whom, except one who are in their 20s, had never heard of her. Can you believe that?
Disgusting.
This is what I have to contend with.
Turn
honestly.
on The Good Life team.
David.
I'd bring back Opportunity Knocks with you, Ian, as the new Huey Green, because I think...
I'm quite sure what to make of that.
I think these programmes have become, these talent shows have become so much more about the judges than actually the people who perform. And, you know, you had great, quirky people with playing the spoons alongside people who then went on to be international
I remember
talent.
watching that. Bobby Crush, I remember, started on that. And a Dutch singer called Ronnie had a song called Angelina. I wonder how many of our listeners will remember that. Text me if you do. Thank you all very much indeed. I would bring back Crossroads, by the way. On tomorrow's panel, it's a very sad day tomorrow. It's the last cross question until the 1st of September. We will have the Liberal Democrat investment and trade spokesperson, Josh Reynolds, the manufacturing sector businessman, John Elliott, plus Green Party London Assembly member, Caroline Russell. Now, coming up in the next hour, we're going to turn our attention to a subject which I think has been terribly neglected on UK media over the past few months, because we've all concentrated on what Donald Trump has been doing in either bombing Iran or not bombing Iran and coming to some spurious peace deal with Iran that never lasts. But since January, when have we talked about the Iranian regime? Well, last night, or yesterday, they beheaded 3 protesters. Now, this has got scant little coverage in the British media today. There are also rumours that they had a stage where they beheaded them. They expected cheering crowds. What they got was more protesters. And it's rumoured that 200 of those protesters were shot dead as well.
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom, an independent review into social care in England will report back a year early, as the Prime Minister says he wants to pursue reform with urgency. But Andy Burnham's warned of difficult decisions about the cost. He's held talks today with the Conservatives and Lib Dems. Richard Sloggett was a special advisor to former Health Secretary Matt Hancock. He's told LBC the idea of a cap on care and accommodation costs no longer seems a front-runner.
Part of the challenge here is, as soon as you get a change of government, and particularly with Labour and the Conservatives coming at this issue from a very different perspective, you're going to get very different views on what you're trying to achieve. Are you trying to protect people's housing assets, or are you trying to increase access to general care or improve care quality?
More than half of England is now in drought, with weeks of continuous dry weather taking its toll on water supplies. More than 20 million people are already under hosepipe bans, with much of England experiencing its 4th heat wave. The Environment Agency says rivers are running low and crops are being harvested earlier. Well, meanwhile, we're told crews are making significant progress in tackling a wildfire in the Cairngorms in the Scottish Highlands. More than 500 firefighters have been dealing with the fire since it broke out 2 weeks ago. Fire breaks have been put in to try to control the spread of the flames. A court heard a funeral director in Hull spent more than £42,000 on holidays while scamming dozens of grieving families. Robert Bush admitted 67 offences, including preventing burials, fraud and theft. It's the third of a 5-day sentencing hearing, with some victims describing being handed fake ashes of their loved ones. He told police after his arrest back in 2024 it was all because of financial problems.
I never intended for any of this to be, this is not how I would have liked this to come to, and trying to navigate the difficulties we were having financially, mostly as a business.
And police won't take further action against a social media post by Green Party leader Zach Polanski. Reform's Nigel Farage claimed it had incited violence. In the city, the FTSE 100 closed up 37 points at 10,908. The pound buys $1.33 and €1.17. LBC weather: patchy rain in Scotland and sinking into northwestern England and North Wales this evening. Otherwise, staying mainly dry, lows of 6 to 16 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Daryl Jackson.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening. It's 9:05 on LBC. I'm going to plead guilty to something, because one of the most difficult parts of this job, and I think I speak for Corey and Chris, my producers, as well as myself on this, is deciding which subjects we cover each day, which ones we do phone-ins on, which ones we do hits on with commentators or reporters. And sometimes, inevitably, you get it wrong. And I think the whole of the British media has got something very wrong over the last few months. Well, in fact, we've probably got a lot of things very wrong. I don't think we've given enough attention to what's going on in Ukraine over the last few months. I think whenever Donald Trump does something, we're far too willing to talk about it because he is box office. Whatever he says, it's like catnip to phone-in programs. And I think certainly in the first year of his second term, I think we probably covered him a bit too much. What we haven't covered enough, I know, is the situation in Iran. Not the fact that Donald Trump is launching attacks on Iran, which have restarted in the last week. Not the fact that the Iranians are continuing to hit countries in the Gulf area. We've covered all of that. But what we haven't done since really January or February is to cover what's going on internally in Iran. Because when Trump's initial attacks on Iran in February essentially wiped out most of the leadership of the regime, everyone thought, well, that means that there's not going to be as many sort of beheadings, hangings as there used to be. I was on the train this afternoon coming into London, and a video came up on my Instagram reel, and it was a guy saying, why on earth are the media not covering the fact that last night 3 executions took place? I mean, they were actually hangings. I think I said beheadings earlier. 3 public hangings of people who were arrested for protesting in the protests in January. And I thought, well, I haven't read anything about this. I haven't heard of this. So when I got in, I said, well, let's do a hit on this. And then I said, no, let's do a phone-in on it. Let's treat it with the seriousness that it deserves and try and find out a little bit more of what's happening within Iran at the moment. Because, I mean, one of the reasons I think there were many reasons that Trump gave for striking Iran in February. And one of them was what the Iranian regime was doing to its own people. Well, it seems as though that hasn't changed. The fact that most of the original Iranian regime was wiped out doesn't seem to have had any impact at all. There is still the lack of freedom in Iran that there was before. There are still the killings that there were before. But why aren't we making more of that? Because I think I'm not saying that this means that therefore I fully support Donald Trump's continuing attacks on Iran, because I think he's boxed himself into a corner. I don't think he knows how to get out of it. But the question is, this is something that Andy Burnham is going to have to deal with as the new Prime Minister. And we haven't heard much from him on foreign affairs so far. But how should Andy Burnham go about challenging the Iranian regime? Because surely that's what any British Prime Minister should do. We have history in that region. We can't just turn our backs and say, well, it's up to the Iranians themselves to decide what to do about their own regime. Surely, if we believe in human rights, we need to encourage freedom movements within Iran, either tacitly, explicitly, or supporting them materially. 0345 6060 973. Well, let's talk to Negar Mojdahedi, who is a journalist and presenter for Iran International English. He's also the host of the Eye for Iran podcast. Negar, good to see you again. Can you just bring us up to date with what's happened over the last 24 hours with these executions?
Well, first of all, thank you for that introduction, because it's so depressing and disheartening to see the lack of attention or care. Like, where are the protests around the world? We had 2 protesters, 2 young men who were executed. There was a heavy police presence. There was protests happening again, people gathering overnight to try and prevent this from happening. But unfortunately, they were publicly hanged. There was a 3rd individual, as young as 18. He was also meant to be executed, but reports are that he had a heart attack just prior out of fear. Now, this is part of the Ali Khani Square case, which involves a total of 12 young men. 2 were executed, like I said the other day. and 2 more were executed already on July 19th. Iain, there is a post that is going viral right now amongst the Iranian diaspora, and it's depressing. It reads that when you see 4 industrial cranes, the most tragic thing about being Iranian is that when you see 4 industrial cranes erected by the government, it's not because they're dealing with an infrastructure project. It's not because they're trying to improve the country. It's because they're getting ready to publicly hang their own citizens.
And I mean, we have in this country, I don't know how many Iranian expats who've basically fled Iran to come to live here, but I mean, it must be in the hundreds of thousands, I would think. And it is terrible when all of those people sort of see these stories, and I suppose they can explain to their English neighbours, well, this is why we've had to flee that regime, because this sort of thing, it's not, I mean, we're highlighting this one today, but I'm sure there have been others over the last few weeks that have happened that nobody knows about. This happened to be a very public hanging. Not all of them are. And you think, well, what message is the current Iranian regime trying to send out, saying, well, we are just as hardline as our predecessors. It's a warning sign to people to toe the line, or these are the consequences. But do they understand, do you think, the effect that this has internationally on their own reputation, or do they care?
I don't think they care. And unfortunately, when it comes to their international reputation, it doesn't seem to really impact it. Again, I haven't seen the campus protests, that we've seen for other conflicts around the world happening for this. Why is this not a big deal for people? I don't see this on, the front page of or headlines, or it's not making headlines around the world. Public executions in 2026 for protesting. In the city of Esfahan alone, there are 70 protesters who are set to be executed. Hundreds since the January massacre. Tens of thousands of people were killed then in just 2 nights. And I hear people on, Piers Morgan and various shows in Western media basically debating if that even actually happened.
Which is incredible, isn't it? When people automatically assume that we, in the so-called dreaded mainstream media, have some reason to lie about these things. I mean, it's incredible that people can even think in that way. And yet, as you say, people are happy to march every Saturday chanting Free Gaza, when frankly, a lot of them in those marches have not got the faintest idea what they're even marching for. And yet, where are the Free Iran marches that are going on? I mean, I really would love someone to try and launch this, because it's just sickening when you see what's happening to ordinary people who just want to lead a normal life.
Every Saturday, the Iranian diaspora, there's a lot of members of the Jewish community who also show up to these freedom protests for Iran. And the most depressing thing, Iain, is that there are counter protests. A lot of the people who are taking part in the Free Gaza protests come with the Islamic Republic flag, many of them not from the region at all. Actually, much of them are Caucasian, and telling people in my community that we're the ones who have this wrong, that we're on the wrong side of history, and that the Islamic Republic is good. They're the good people in this equation. And I think this goes back to the fact that the perpetrators in this case are the people that they identify with as the heroes. And the perpetrators are not Israel and the US in this case. And as a result, it just gets ignored.
And that's the point, isn't it? Because if Donald Trump wasn't launching these military strikes on Iran, if Israel hadn't done the same thing, I think a lot of these protesters wouldn't be doing that, but because it's Trump and Israel, that's a good enough reason. They don't even feel the need to research the very regime that they are ostensibly promoting. It's sickening.
Yeah, it's very sickening. The very regime that is threatening them and their way of life and Western civilization, for that matter.
Just to play devil's advocate for a second, because that has to be my job from time to time. I mean, what do you say to people who say, well, look, it's up to the Iranians to decide their own future. We in the West should just stay out of it. We shouldn't do anything that could cause more conflict. I think that's a cop-out. I think it's a cowardly way forward. But, I mean, that is what a lot of people think.
Well, I would say that the people of Iran are asking for help. In fact, in 2009, they were pleading for help from Barack Obama when they were rising up against Ahmadinejad, who they believed stole the election from the reformists, Mir Hossein Mousavi. So time and time again, the people of Iran are calling out and they are asking for help. But unfortunately, when it comes to the war, for example, if Iran is as weak as Donald Trump says they are, then use that as a negotiating tactic. Use that to free all, we will not negotiate, we will not talk to you unless you free all political prisoners. So at the same time, a lot of people inside Iran are wondering if President Donald Trump is serious about getting rid of the regime. Because when we hear, I'm going to finish the job, what does finish the job really mean? To a lot of people, that would, it's a very doomsday-like scenario, very apocalyptic. And people automatically assume that means finish off the regime. But unfortunately, when I've spoken to military experts and analysts, the meaning of that phrase can change depending on what the objective is. And as of now, the objective is to, end the nuclear threat or to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. So I do think that Western leaders need to start being very serious and show that they care for the people of Iran and have human rights be part of the talks.
Are you aware of this interview that Trump has given to Fox News today? Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, I can't repeat what the President of the United States has said because I would lose my job if I did. But let me make an attempt without actually saying the words. He says, this is an interview with Fox News earlier today on Iran. We're going to beat the effing SH-1T out of them. I mean, not very presidential words, but I mean, if he means that, I'm not quite sure what the implications of that are. I mean, is that something that you would welcome?
Well, it depends, because again, does that mean that you're going to go after political targets? Or what about Ejei, the head of the judiciary, that's sentencing these young people to be executed for protesting? It doesn't seem like that's what it is, because somewhere along the lines, the objectives changed here with the U.S. and Israel war inside of Iran. The Israelis did a great job going after the Basij military checkpoints, going for political and IRGC figures. But as I said again, that stopped at some point, and we haven't seen them going for these political targets. So what does that mean? And just the other day when he was on Fox and Friends, when he does his usual call-in the morning, he said that if they don't sign a deal, I'm going to finish the job. And he followed that with, I'm going to destroy all of their big bridges and infrastructure and power plants. But he said, I'm hesitating to do that for the sake of the Iranian people. Well, the government of Iran doesn't care for the Iranian people. In fact, I've spoken to analysts who say they care so much about staying in power that they're willing to withstand all of this. So what kind of leverage does that really give the United States when you bring the Iranian people into the equation there, right? So at the end of the day, if destroying bridges is what he means by finish the job or I'll beat the XXX out of them, it doesn't seem like the bridges may not be standing, but the regime might. Would it economically impact them so much that they won't be able to pay off the IRGC and the Artesh? That remains a question, but they always find ways to circumvent all of these tactics.
Well, I think it's also very interesting and highly significant that Saudi Arabia have now been conducting airstrikes against Iran alongside the Americans, because obviously Saudi Arabia and Iran have been sort of declared enemies for many, many years. But Saudi Arabia has been very reticent to take military action, but now it is doing so. And that might be something that the Iranian government lives to regret. Nega, thank you very much for joining us. That's Nega Mojtahedi, who is a journalist and presenter of Iran International English and host of the podcast I for Iran. Right, we're going to come to your calls in a moment. I do want to hear from the Iranian diaspora in this country, because I remember, I think I was one of the first to really cover this over Christmas, the protests that were happening. We had some incredibly moving calls from people they were very fearful for the safety of their relatives in Iran. And I want to hear from you what you're hearing on the ground from your friends and relatives in the Islamic Republic. and whether these protests might start up again, because it seems as though the crowd that gathered last night when these two men were executed, the regime thought it would be a crowd that would be cheering them on. And in fact, it turned out to be a crowd who were protesting. And then they were followed in the streets by the police. And there are rumours that many were shot dead in that as well. I haven't been able to verify that yet. The video that I saw on Instagram certainly asserted that 200 people had been shot dead. I haven't been able to, as I say, verify whether that is true or not. But more to the point, what on earth should the international community do to support people in Iran who are fed up with the terrible lives that they lead, not just because of the economic circumstances that their government has engineered? We can debate about how that's come about, but just the fact that these executions are still routinely taking place. Shouldn't the British government take a moral stance on that? They bang on about human rights in this country, but what about human rights in a country like Iran? Don't we care about that? 0345 6060 973. It's 22 minutes past 9.
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m.
Andy Burnham says he'll do whatever it takes to fix the broken care system in this country. What impact has the state of that system right now had on you and your family? And how much credit do you give our new Prime Minister for trying to fix it? Plus, is a tax cut for the elderly but not the young fair? And your calls on why so many Londoners are fleeing London.
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Noticed a change in your hearing? Well, get a hearing check from Specsavers. Oh, not sure where to start? Well, we're very flexible. Book one online, on the phone, on your lunch break, on Saturdays, on the same day if you're lucky. Oh, you only miss the odd word. But what if the odd words you're missing are nice ones like love you, or important ones like duck? Oh, too expensive, is it? All right, we like you. We'll do it for nothing. For free hearing checks, should have gone to Specsavers.
A message from TfL for drivers, motorcyclists and cyclists. Before you turn, look around. Is there someone crossing or waiting to cross at the junction? You now need to always let them cross before you turn. Follow the highway code to keep everyone safe. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
The Ford Puma and the all-electric Ford Puma Gen E. Stylish, bold, and as driven as you are. And now, you could win one. Take a test drive in any Ford Puma to enter and be in with a chance of winning either the Ford Puma or all-electric Ford Puma Gen E. Search Win a Ford Puma to book online. Ready, set, Ford. To enter, take a test drive between the 1st of July and the 31st of August. T's and C's apply, 25 plus only. For details, see ford.co.uk.
This is LBC with Iain Dale. Call 0345 6060 973.
24 minutes past 9 on LBC. Let's go to your calls, asking several questions, really. I mean, if you are from Iran originally, or a family from Iran originally, how do you react to these latest executions? What stance would you like Western governments, or indeed worldwide governments, to take against the Islamic Republic? 0345 6060 973. Mason is in Hounslow. Hello, Mason.
Hello, Ian. It's
Hi.
a pleasure speaking. It's the first time I'm speaking to you. I'm normally calling LC, but it's the first time I'm speaking to you, so it's a pleasure. So I'm an Iranian, part of the diaspora, and, we have, I've initially heard that you haven't seen any protests about the Iranians who are against the Islamic Republic. We actually have been protesting every weekend in front of the Islamic Republic embassy. Well, actually, that's an Iranian embassy invaded by Islamic Republic. So we have been protesting, and I know there are counter-protests against us, all the Palestinian supporters. But moving that aside, the only way that Iranian people can confront this demonic regime, the Islamic regime, is for us to be armed. There's no other way for us to confront this regime. This regime has shown that they have no mercy. They just kill people with live ammunition. They don't care. They have no they have zero value for the people of Iran because they're the invaders of Iran. So, as you're aware, in 1979 we had I don't want to call it a revolution because it wasn't a revolution; it was an insurrection, and we had this change with the help of CIA and MI6. Unfortunately, the weapons were imported to Iran, given to these people. And they, the Shah of Iran didn't want to kill its own people, so he decided to leave the country. Unlike these people who have no mercy, they've just shown that they can kill over 50,000 people in a matter of hours. So the only way to get rid of this regime, I know Donald Trump. Not many people like him, but the only way is to give weapons to the people. I know he said we tried to give weapons to the Kurdish and then the Kurdish kept it. I'm not sure what happened there. But maybe somehow the West can drop the weapons by air to some, Iran is a huge country. You can drop it to the middle of a desert and some organized people can, there are many ways they can collect it and distribute it to people, but somehow train people. But that's the only way, Ian. I'm not sure what you think of it.
Well, I don't know the answer to it, which is partly why I'm asking the question. But what do you know of what's happened in Iran since the protests in January? Because I thought that if Donald Trump was going to do anything, that was the time to do it, and that could have had some impact on toppling the regime. But he waited till the end of February and then tried to deny that regime change was part of the objective in any case. But what have things changed in any material way since then?
I think Donald Trump tried to delay it because obviously he delayed it to gather his armada of army and all the ships, navies, and all the military equipment to go around the Persian Gulf. But I think that was the reason why he delayed it. I know deep down he wants to help Iranian people. Obviously he doesn't love us. He wants the oil. He wants, he has his own, which understandably he has his own agenda, which we don't mind. We've been given our oil to China for a quarter of the price or fraction of the price of the global price, and that's how China became this superpower of the world, selling cheap goods to the Europe and Americans because of our oil. So we don't actually mind giving it to USA. So. I understand that they're not going to help us for free. So if America is going to help us, please do help us. And one more thing I just remembered. The only thing that I don't know, Western media is also hesitating to recognize the son of Shah, the Crown Prince, Reza Pahlavi. I think he's the only hope for us at the moment. I know not many people like him because, the things that they're saying I wasn't alive. I wasn't even born. At that time, but looking back in time, Iran was a great place prior to 1979. So I don't think that son of the Shah, Reza Pahlavi, is a bad guy. If you listen to his, gathering and his seminars and whatnot, he's trying to speak to the international community. He's a lovely guy. He has a plan. He doesn't even want to be a king. I mean, everybody's calling him a king, all the monarchies and people who are interested in Persian monarchy again. They call him a king. but he's not interested. He's actually calling for a real democracy, a real election for people to decide whether they want monarchy or a republic. So I really want the international community, including the news agents, maybe LBC can interview him or do something about it, or to recognize him. Maybe we can make a coalition government outside of Iran for the Western countries to recognize this government outside of Iran. Then we can have a plan to actually replace this. Maybe we can take back our embassies, which are invaded by Islamic Republic. Maybe we can start from London and expel these diplomats and get the Iranian embassy back to us, to the people of Iran, which we've been doing. We've been protesting in front of it. But the police, is making it harder for us every weekend. So there are many things that the international community can do. And one of that is recognizing, Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi as a transitional leader. We don't want to call him a king yet. I mean, I'm a monarchist myself, even though I wasn't even born at that time. But looking back in history, looking at the videos, Iran was a great country back then. I'm not sure if you remember or if you were old enough to remember.
Well, I do remember that Ayatollah Khomeini taking over in 1979.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I wasn't really, what was I, 15, 16 years old. So it wasn't really something that I knew an awful lot about. But, I mean, can you just... Look, I've just had a text here basically accusing you of being a totally bogus call. Now, if I thought you were a bogus call, you wouldn't have been on the air for the last 10 minutes. I think you've been incredibly informative.
I understand. You know, we have... Islamic Republic has a very strong secret services who are operating in Europe. The IRGC operated secret servants through... You know, they come with this rubber dinghy, and they operate in London, in UK. So it's really normal for them to call me a bogus caller. We are the real people of Iran. We are the true people of Iran who are asking, who our mom, you know, my mom and dad tell me about the history and how Iran was and how valuable our currency was back then, how valuable our passport was. Everyone was recognizing us all Europe. We could travel to Europe without even, you know, needing a visa and all that. I mean, I've been here for over 26 years. And before I become a British citizen, I mean, I'm very grateful to this country who gave me, you know, a life, really. But beforehand, I had to get a visa to go to anywhere. The only country we can, and as an Iranian citizen, we could travel to is actually Turkey. Even to go into Afghanistan, we need a visa. So our currency, forget the visa and the passport situation, our currency is one of the worst. I think it's the worst currency in the world right now, which has people are suffering, you know, forget all the travel, because people can't even afford to travel if you're living in Iran. People are suffering. The inflation rate is over 200%. It's the situation.
Yeah, but you listen to defenders of the regime, and they will seriously assert that that's Donald Trump's fault.
Well, of course, because they're paid by the Islamic Republic. They are the paid servants. Of course, if you're paid by the Islamic Republic, of course you're going to defend it. Of course you're going to blame America. They call it a great Satan or whatever. You know, when I was in the school in Iran, I was in Iran till the age of 9. Before, you know, I'm thankful to my family who, you know, we left Iran. They used to tell us to say death to America, death to England, death to France, death to everybody. What is this regime? The regime of death? I mean...
Listen, Mason, I could talk to you for the rest of the hour, frankly. You've been a fantastic caller. You've informed us a lot, and I hope this won't be the last time that you call into the programme. Thank you very much indeed. Lots more calls coming in. We'll come to those in just a moment. It's 9:34. Let's get the news headlines from Daryl Jackson.
The Liberal Democrats say constructive talks have been held with the Tories and government on reforming social care in England. Andy Burnham says it's an issue that's been seen as too risky, difficult and complicated, and blames inaction on his generation of politicians. More than half of England is now in drought, with weeks of continuous dry weather taking its toll on water supplies. More than 20 million people are already under hosepipe bans, with much of England experiencing its fourth heat wave. No action will be taken against Green Party leader Zach Polanski after an image was shared from his social media of a man in a T-shirt depicting a guillotine and referring to Nigel Farage. The Met Police say the threshold for a criminal investigation hasn't been met. LBC weather, patchy rain in Scotland and sinking into northwestern England and North Wales this evening, otherwise staying mainly dry, lows of 6 to 16 degrees.
This is LBC.
I needed this trip. Some me time, lounging in the sunshine, reading my book, dipping my toes in the pool. Perfecto.
Oh, sounds lovely. Amalfi Coast, was it?
No, Brockwell Lido, darling.
Unwind by the pool without leaving the city and save a third with Group Save on off-peak journeys. Thameslink Railway, where every stop is a story. Terms apply.
Vodafone is backing the UK with an £11 billion investment to make the nation's biggest network even better.
Fair play, that's a big commitment.
So you can launch that business.
So I can start selling my model trains in Pwllheli.
Multitask in a haze of glory.
I could stream Wimbledon whilst on a video call.
Start doing more of what you love from more places. Opportunity awaits. Switch to Vodafone today on the nation's network.
Nation's network means UK's biggest network through Vodafone 3 merger based on mobile sites versus major providers. Network improvements by 2034. See vodafone.co.uk/TNN. Subject to coverage.
What you're hearing is real. The aliens have landed and they have something to say.
Take us to your dealer. Just 0.9% APR on every new Mini.
They just want to go to a mini retailer.
Mini.
You heard them. Off we go. Make contact at your nearest retailer and get 0.9% APR representative across the entire range with a 25% deposit and 24-month term. Mini UK is a credit broker. Order by 30th September, delivered by 31st December. PCP with Mini Financial Services. Subject to status. T's and C's apply. mini.co.uk/offers.
Iain Dale. Text 84850. This is LBC.
9:36. What a great call that was from Mason, wasn't it? We'll come to more calls in a second. Let me just read out this text from Annie. Thank you for covering the shocking situation in Iran. I hadn't heard anything about Iran in the news. Why do we not protest in the streets in support of Iranians? Well, you can do that. Apparently every Saturday afternoon there is a protest outside the Iranian embassy in... Where is it in... What? In Kensington, I thought it was. Whilst what is happening in Gaza has rightly galvanised the world, we need to raise our voices about Iran. Let's talk to Mehrdad in Edgware. Mehrdad, hi.
Hi, good evening, Ian. A pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for calling in. What would you like to tell us?
Well, basically, what I wanted to say is I'm one of the people who are attending in this demonstration in front of the embassy, and we are demanding regime change in Iran. And what I wanted to say is a majority of Iranians who are living in exile, either in the UK or other countries. What we want is the regime change in Iran, and we actually supporting this war against this regime. We are not calling it war against Iranian people. We call it war against regime. And also, we consider this as a rescue mission by U.S. and also Israelis. We actually thankful for this. And if you look at the people who are attending in support of this war and demanding change in Iran, their majority are Iranian who are living in exile. And if you look at the people who are in contrast, they are demonstrating to stop the war. The majority are not Iranian, actually. If you look at it, 10-15% of those people are Iranian, and the rest, they are not actually Iranian. The majority of Iranians who are living outside of Iran, they want this war. They want to get rid of this regime, basically.
What do you make? I mean, I don't know if you watch Instagram reels and videos, but there are quite a few of them where you have somebody who's Iranian interviewing people on these marches that are in support of the Islamic Republic, and they interviewed them, and they clearly have absolutely no clue what this regime is like. And the ignorance, it's the same with Gaza in some ways. The ignorance is astonishing. And do you find that with people that you meet sort of every day, that people, because Donald Trump's doing the bombing, they automatically side with Iran?
Exactly. I don't know if they don't like Trump or they're actually supporting this regime. They do not have a clue what's happening in Iran. They killed over 50,000 people in just 2 days. In Iran, in 8th and 9th of January, they killed more than 50,000 innocent people who came out, demonstrated in Iran. They killed them, and no one talks about this. And they do not even have a clue about this. Yesterday morning, they execute like 4 people in Isfahan. And after that, there was a demonstration in Isfahan. No one looked at this. Since 8th and 9th of January, they execute they hanged more than 100 people because they wanted their own rights, basic rights, freedom. That's all they wanted.
You see,
this has been not echoed in the media. That's the way it should have been done.
And these are the very people that, if Israel was executing people in Israel like the Iranian regime is, they would be the first to jump on them. But they seem to just give these people a free pass on it. And I just don't understand why. Yes, we can criticise Israel for many of its actions in Gaza, but, Israel doesn't do this sort of thing.
Exactly. If you look at, how many people are at the moment in a prison of Israel, they haven't been treated the way that Iranian regime has been treated their own people. They hanged or innocent people day in, day out. And if you look at the Israelis had a war in Gaza because of the hostage that has been taken by Hamas. Right. Even in the media, what I heard, it was during these 3 years war, they, according to the supporter of Palestine or Hamas, they said there are around 50,000 people who've been killed. In 2 days, this Islamic regime killed more than 50,000 people, only 2 days. And no one's mentioning this.
Well, we are. Thank you very much indeed, Mehrdad. Let's go to Sandy, who's in Towan in South Wales. Sandy, good evening.
Hi there, Ian. Appreciate your time, and thank you so much just for having these callers come in and educate us. I wasn't aware of these hangings that were going on, and I've been really shocked and disgusted. So that's the first thing to say. Thank you so much. First-time caller, just a point I'd like to make, really, Ian. And look, hands up, I don't have the answers on Iran. I'm not that well informed about it, about the ins and outs. But I guess just a point to add and to bring not some nuance, because this isn't nuanced. It's very clear from your callers that this needs tackling, and Andy Burnham definitely needs to challenge the Iranian regime. But I guess on the other side, there's also, let's not forget, Trump hit that girls' school right at the beginning of the war and it's been clear, hasn't it? It's come out that it was a US Tomahawk missile that did that. No accountability on that. So I guess, again, I'm moving away from is this or the other worse. We've got to tackle both of those things.
Well,
so
I hope we can all agree that wasn't a deliberate attack on a girls' school. It was I think that school was situated in a site that had been a military barracks, and clearly a terrible mistake was made.
Allegedly so, yeah, absolutely. I guess my point is tackling both. It's not either or. It's absolutely tackling the Iranian regime, and that was going to be hugely challenging, I'm guessing, for Andy Burnham to consider. But also looking at the other side of this as well, and the lack of accountability in terms of Trump as well. People have said, haven't they, that we know that from his perspective it's more about oil, and he doesn't really care about the Iranian people because of that. As you say, it was allegedly a mistake, but again, that there's no accountability that's come out about that. So all I'm saying is let's tackle both as well. And just going back to the previous caller, again, what an education, and the one before that, people who were there, people who were seeing exactly what's happening on the ground. And just to add, it's awful to say, but actually Israel, and I don't want to get into the Israel debate, but the UN themselves came out to say that they are themselves intentionally targeting children. So to say that they're not also committing atrocities, again, it's everything. We need to be, Burnham needs to be.
Yeah, all I will say is that the UN is always very keen to attack Israel at any possible moment for things that it has allegedly done. When do we ever hear the United Nations slamming the Islamic Republic of Iran for its human rights abuses?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It can't be, let's just talk about this and not the other thing. You're so right, of course. We need to bring kind of balance to this, to be targeting all these kind of issues. But yeah, you're right. And that's why, thank you, because I think this debate is really important. It brings nuance, it brings all the aspects, but thanks for educating us. I wasn't aware.
Your phone call has justified us doing this hour, because if we have brought a little bit of information that people haven't had before, and that's effectively what you've said, Sandy. Well, my work here is done this hour because I think it is important that this subject is covered. As I say, I think that we generally in the media have let down the people of Ukraine over the last 6 months. I think we've also let down the people of Iran. I'm just doing a little bit to try and redress that. But Steve isn't happy. He says, can we please remember that we killed the Iranian religious leader? No, we didn't actually. The Americans did. The equivalent of the Pope for the Shias, an 80-year-old, and in his own home. God, my heart bleeds. Do we have any moral high ground at all? Are you still selling the idea that our destruction of country after country in the Middle East is all for freedom? I haven't tried to sell any idea. And what kind of response do we expect towards those who collaborated with us? Just think on that. Burnham, if he had any sense, would steer clear. Well, you have the international human rights morals of an alley cat, Steve. You are a moral coward because sometimes, just sometimes, we do have to stand up to evil regimes. You're the kind of person that would have given Hitler the benefit of the doubt in the 1930s, I imagine. Sorry if that sounds insulting, but it was meant to be. 9:46.
Coming up at 10 on LBC, Ben Kentish.
Andy Burnham says he'll do whatever it takes to fix social care. How has the current broken system failed you? Plus, would scrapping stamp duty for pensioners but not for anybody else be fair?
Ben Kentish at 10. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Big Motoring World is the nation's biggest used car supermarket, so we go big on things like peace of mind. That's why we're proud to announce we're an RAC approved dealer, and all our cars come with a free 3-month warranty and RAC breakdown cover. Drive away with peace of mind at Visit bigmotoringworld.co.uk to verify comparison and for T's and C's. Nation's biggest refers to cars in stock.
Okay, Laura, from the top.
When your 9-year-old is an unexpected tuber prodigy, and now you want to support her cheek-puffing talent, be a step ahead with Barclays Premier. With personalised financial planning and a dedicated advisor. Barclays, backing your future. Eligibility criteria apply. Investment products and services are provided by Barclays Bank PLC and its subsidiaries. Capital at risk.
At the third stroke, the time from BT will be at 6 o'clock precisely.
Today in the UK, BT will protect millions of homes against scammers.
Threat neutralised.
Keep thousands of family video chats running smoothly.
Hi, Nana.
And answer every call for support from the UK and Ireland.
Okay, all sorted.
Switch to broadband you can rely on, with advanced security included as standard.
At the third stroke, the time from BT will be brilliant.
BT, behind brilliant things.
What you're hearing is real. The aliens have landed and they have something to say.
Take us to your dealer. Just 0.9% APR on every new Mini.
They just want to go to a mini retailer.
Mini.
You heard them. Off we go. Make contact at your nearest retailer and get 0.9% APR representative across the entire range with a 25% deposit and 24-month term. Mini UK is a credit broker. Order by 30th September, delivered by 31st December. PCP with Mini Financial Services. Subject to status. T's and C's apply. mini.co.uk/offers.
Iain Dale on LBC. Listen on your smart speaker. Just say, play LBC.
9:48 on LBC. Sal in Paddington is with us. Hello, Sal.
Good evening. I think that we need to do a brief history lesson here, I'm afraid, because the Shah of Iran that one of your recent callers was talking about, which he admits was before his time, hosted the world's most expensive party 8 years before this horrendously evil regime then swooped in to take over. His father was forced to, it was himself made to give up the throne during the end of the Second World War, when Allied powers, i.e. Britain and the Soviets, it took over what had been the neutral state of Iran. Okay, and then the restoration happened about 7 or 8 years after that.
Yeah, it was 1952, I think.
Yeah, but in 1971, to commemorate 2,500 years of the Persian Empire. At the time, it was the longest-lasting empire still extant, which is now an honor held by Japan. Then, basically, you had the biggest concentration ever of monarchy globally in any one place for any length of time in recorded history. And the lavishness of this party cannot be overstated. There is a fantastic documentary on it that has got both video taken at the time and reporting at the time, spliced in with interviews of people who were there in more recent times. And which it would be literally called the world's most expensive party. And it goes through what have been structural problems in Iran previous to the taking over by this regime. This regime is absolute evil. I'm not defending them at all, but the idea that that everything was perfect previous to that is also not true.
Well, if the biggest crime of the Shah was to throw a lavish party celebrating 2,500 years of Persian culture,
whilst people in his country were starving, that was the issue.
But you can make that argument in this country about, well, why do we have royal jubilees and the money that's spent on those when we have people in poverty in this country? I mean, I'm not sure that's a great argument.
I'm not saying it's. I'm not saying that to defend that. I'm just saying putting in context, right? Because this was something that was happening at a time where we ourselves as Britain were still very much movers and shakers in the entire region, and so it is.
And Iran was an ally. It was part of the sort of bulwark against the Soviet Union in some ways.
Yes, after we had forced his father to basically give up the throne and then installed the last Shah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what that's got to do with what I just said, but.
So what I think we need to do going forwards is really to absolutely be shouting from the rooftops the damage and the perpetration of horrendous crimes that this regime is doing. It is not just damaging to its people; it is damaging to the whole of humanity. And whilst it stays there, it's an absolute affront.
Okay, Sal, thank you very much indeed. Let's move on to Cam, who is in Hampstead. Hello, Cam.
Hello, Ian. Thanks for the opportunity. I just had a few points to add on based on what I've been hearing. I guess the first thing I wanted to raise was regarding Sadiq Khan. I just heard this week that he was criticizing Netanyahu and saying that he's a war criminal and he shouldn't be welcome in London, etc. And it's interesting for me that Sadiq Khan has not once criticized the Islamic Republic for the thousands of killings that have done to the Iranian people, including the 50,000 that were killed in January. And every day there's executions in Iran. Just this week, I think yesterday, 3 were hanged. Young, innocent people who did nothing more than just want freedom. Not a word from most politicians, including Sadiq Khan, on the fact that these innocent people are dying. But he's very quick to obviously go after Netanyahu, etc.
And why do you think that is?
Well, there's an agenda. He's obviously very much in bed with Islamic extremists, and that's a known fact by a lot of people know that. And, it's a very unhealthy society that London has been created because of his mayorship. On your previous caller, also the mentioning about the Shah's party, again, a very big propaganda tool that has been used.
I mean, you just said that Sadiq Khan was in bed with Islamic extremists. I mean, that I have to push back on that. You've got no evidence for saying that. He would certainly deny that.
Ian, many times Iranians have gone to interview him and get an opinion about what the Ayatollahs are doing to young people. He avoids it, and he does not want to answer any kind of questions about that. What is the basis of that?
Well, I haven't interviewed Sadiq Khan for a long time, but I can assure you if I ever interview him again, I will put that question to him on your behalf.
Okay. And I just wanted to say that every Saturday, thousands of Iranians are going on Saturday and on Sunday, going and protesting and want freedom. There's one person they're all supporting, and that's Prince Reza Pahlavi. Now, I heard the previous caller regarding the party. I've lived in the UK for 47 years. I've seen many parties, whether it's the Jubilee, the silver one, the golden one, etc. No one seems to mind that, but they're very quick to go after the Shah, who celebrated 2,500 years of monarchy in Iran.
Yeah, well, I did make that point to the caller.
Yeah, you did. And I just wanted to say that it's been proven that in terms of tourism, the money that generated for Iran over the 70s was many multiples of that. So I don't think the Shah gets a lot of criticism compared to many leaders currently which are in power in the Middle East, including the Saudi, MBS, including the UAE, while the Shah was years ahead of everyone in terms of women's rights, in terms of economic freedom, social freedom. But all of that is not covered on mainstream media. There seems to be an agenda to go against well, don't tar us all with the same brush.
I don't think that's fair. But I mean, just to follow up on your point on Sadiq Khan, he did tweet this back in March. While the brutal Iranian regime should rightly be condemned and international pressure applied, this war is not the right course of action. So he has actually condemned the Iranian regime too.
I mean, that's very weak. And as the other caller, Mehrdad, called, all Iranians that I know are supportive of this action because they know that it's the only way to get rid of this regime. I have a friend, just to tell you quickly, who lives in London, and just today somebody called from Iran and threatened her because of her activism for freedom. So we are all living in London, but we are getting every day threatened by the regime. And I just wish that the UK government would be more forceful in the actions they would, whether it's the IRGC, whether it's to throwing out the diplomats, ending the relationship, because it's enough is enough. We're all very scared here and living in a very difficult situation.
Well, thank you for your call. I've got so many calls that I haven't got time to go to now because we're really nearly at the end of the programme. So let me read out a couple of texts before we end. This one from Simon. I'm not sure I should read this out because it's basically saying that we've done a good job on the show and it's a bit self-aggrandising. But hey, it's the end of the show. Why not? Simon says, I rarely need to message or phone into your show because you often hit exactly the right note on an issue. You've done it again tonight. Thanks for not only highlighting such an important global issue, facilitating so much useful and important information on it, and most of all, putting ignorant fools in their place. You've done it again. Well, talking of ignorant fools, here's Rebecca. Rebecca, oh, sorry, I've mistakenly deleted. She was having a go at me for calling that guy earlier somebody who had sympathised with Hitler in the 1930s, and she was saying that Israel was a far more evil regime than Iran. Never listen to my programme again, Rebecca. Thank you very much. We want intelligent people listening to the programme. Thanks for all of your calls and messages this evening. I'll be back tomorrow from 7. If you missed any of this evening's show, you can listen back on our free Global Player app or the LBC app, where you can stay up to date with all the latest news, videos and opinion. Download the official LBC app for free from your app store now. By the way, there's a new edition of Iain Dale All Talk. It's a conversation I had 7 years ago with Emily Maitlis. Coming up at 1 on LBC, it's Richard Spur. But right now, Ben Kentish.
Thank you, Ian. Hello there. A very good evening. Welcome to Late Nights with Ben Kentish here on LBC. Good to have you with us tonight.
It's shameful, to be honest, that politicians have put point scoring before fixing this issue.
Andy Burnham vows